3, clarify whether the Teacher Service Commission plans to deploy additional teachers to the school, as it is currently understaffed with only 3 teachers teaching all 9 classes, and 4 state measures put in place where the State Department for Basic Education to ensure that pupils in the school get to learn in a conducive environment. Senator Kavindu, MP, Senator for Machakos County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We know you, Senator. Senator Enoch Wambua.
Hey. Give me the. Oh, you get it? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a statement on the repair of rails at the Mlolongo Pay Point on the Nairobi Expressway. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the repair of rails at the Mlolongo Pay Point on the Nairobi Expressway, which were vandalized during the public demonstrations of July 2023. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a breakdown of the total cost incurred by the government to repair the rails at the Mlolongo Pay Point on the Nairobi Expressway, which were vandalized during the public demonstrations of July 2023. Number 2, disclose details on the award of the contract for the repair of the rails, as well as the identity of the contractor that won the award. And number 3, state how long the repair works took. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Samson Cherangei. Any senator holding brief for Senator Cherangei? The statement is dropped. Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the operations of Sukari Industries Limited in Homa Bay County. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a copy of the Human Resource Policies and Procedures Manual of Sukari Industries Limited in Dewa Sub-County in Homa Bay County. 2, provide a list of all personnel currently employed by the company, indicating their respective designation as well as their terms of engagement. 3, specify the proportion relative to the total number of personnel of females and persons from the local community employed by the company. And Mr. Speaker, sir, lastly, the statement should furnish the Senate with the company's corporate social responsibility, CSR policy, providing details on all CSR programs undertaken by the company, their geographical coverage and beneficiaries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights regarding the predicament of Master Austin Karanja, a minor with hearing impediment or impairment who was mauled by school dogs on 28th of October 2023 at the Isinya School for the Deaf while heading for his morning preps, and who was subsequently forced to sit his KCPE in heavy bandages. In the statement, the committee should explain why neither the school nor the security guards in charge of the dogs have been held accountable to date following the attack on Master Karanja. Number 2, state the reasons for the school's subsequent refusal to hand over to the mother, Ms. Lena Nyaboke, the clothes Master Karanja was wearing during the attack to enable further investigations. And finally, Mr. Speaker, establish the complicity of security agencies within the senior area in covering up the attack on the minor, and further establish the safety and security of all the remaining pupils within the institution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism regarding cooperative societies in Bungoma County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a list of all cooperative societies operating within Bungoma County, detailing their specific areas of operation. 2, list the cooperative societies funded by the county government for the financial year 2022 to 2023 and 2023 to 2024, detailing the projects implemented with this support. 3, state the criteria used by the county government to select cooperatives for funding, furnishing financial and audit reports of the cooperative societies funded by the county government and those not receiving funding from the county government. And 4, apprise the Senate on the compliance status of these societies with current regulations and the county strategies to enhance support for cooperatives financially and technically. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this time to request for the statement on the processing of title deeds for estates in Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the processing of title deeds of Mwakingali B and Sikujua estates of Voi Sub-County, Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state when the government will issue landowners of Mwakingali B and Sikujua estates with title deeds for their parcels of land, and 2, give reasons for the delay in issuing the title deeds. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Joseph Kamau. That statement is dropped. Next, order clerk.
Order number 8, motion. Extension of time for consideration of regulations in regard to Lake Olbolosat, the Karai Wetland, Mwangea Hills, and Larry Swamp catchment protection areas.
Senator Mofire. The chairperson, Select Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to move the motion that the extension of the time for consideration of regulations in regard to Lake Olbolosot, the Kalai Wetland, Mwangea Hills, and Larry Swamp catchment protection areas. That are aware that the Lake Olbolosai catchment protection area, under legal notice number 116 of 2023, the Kalai Wetland conservation area under legal notice number 117 of 2023, the Mwangera Hills catchment protection from order legal notice number 118 of 2023, and the Larry Swamp catchment protection area under legal notice number 119 of 2023 were tabled in the Senate on the 11th October 2023 and referred to the Senate Select Committee on Delegated Legislation for consideration. Realizing that the 28 sitting days timeline for consideration of the regulations lapses on Wednesday, 21st of February 2004, but owing to the magnitude of the work involved, the committee has not been able to complete its work within the duration. Realizing that, aware that Section 15.3 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 provides that by a resolution, Parliament may extend the time for consideration of a statutory instrument by a period of not exceeding 21 calendar days, noting that the need for more time to scrutinize the submission from the public engagement forums, especially the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, and the Council of Governors, That's next page, yeah? It's not available. Now, therefore, the Senate resolved to extend the time for consideration of the Lake or Borosat Catchment Protection Area number, legal notice number 116 of 2023, the Karai Wetland Conservation Area under legal notice number 117 of 2023, the Mwangala Hills Catchment Protection Area under legal notice number 118 of 2023, and the Lali Swamp Catchment Protection Area under legal notice number 119 of 2023 by a further 21 calendar days until with reports on or before 11th March 2024. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Who is seconding your motion?
Do I have any member here for my Honorable Montes to second?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I second for the extension of the motion.
Now, honorable senators, I'll proceed to propose the question, which is that aware that the Lake or Bolosat Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 116 of 2023, the Karai Wetland Conservation Area Order Legal Notice number 117 of 2023, the Mwangala Hills Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 118 of 2023, and the Lari Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 119 of 2023 were tabled in the Senate on the 11th of October 2023 and referred to the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation for consideration, realizing that the 28 sitting days timeline for consideration of the regulations lapses on Wednesday, 21st February 2024, but owing to the magnitude of the work involved, the committee has not been able to complete its work within the duration. Aware that Section 15.3 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 provides that by resolution, Parliament may extend the time for consideration of a statutory instrument by a period not exceeding 21 calendar days, noting that the need for more time to scrutinize the submission from the public engagement forums, especially the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation and Council of Governors. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the time for consideration of the Lake or Bolosat Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 116 of 2023, the Karai Wetland Conservation Area Order Legal Notice number 117 of 2023, the Mwangala Hills Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 118 of 2023, and the Lari Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 119 of 2023 by a further 21 calendar days and table its report on or before the 11th of March 2024. Now, honorable senators, of course the floor is open, but this is a procedural motion. With your consensus, you may allow me to proceed to put the question. Thank you, honorable senators. Before I put the question, it is my determination that this matter does not affect counties, and therefore voting shall be by voice. I'll now proceed to put the question. That are aware that the Lake or Bolosat Catchment Protection Area Legal Notice number 116 of 2023, the Karai Wetland Conservation Area Order Legal Notice number 117 of 2023, the Mwangala Hills Catchment Protection Area Order Legal Notice number 118 of 2023, and the Larry Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 119 of 2023, were tabled in the Senate on the 11th of October 2023 and referred to the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation for consideration. Realizing that the 28 sitting days timeline for consideration of the regulations lapses on Wednesday, 21st of February 2024, but owing to the magnitude of the workload involved, the committee has not been able to complete its work within the duration. Aware that Section 15.3 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 provides that by a resolution, Parliament may extend the time for consideration of a statutory instrument by a period not exceeding 21 calendar days. Noting the need for more time to scrutinize the submission from the public engagement forums, especially the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation and the Council of Governors, now therefore the Senate resolved to extend the time for consideration of the Lake Olbolosat Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 116 of 2023, the Karai Wetland Conservation Area Order, legal notice number 117 of 2023, the Mongea Hills Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 118 of 2023, and the Larry Swamp Catchment Protection Area Order, legal notice number 119 of 2023 by a further 21 calendar days, and table its report on or before the 11th of March 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Report of the National Dialogue Committee.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity for me to comment on this report, NADCO report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having gone through the report, I have a few questions, Mr. Speaker, because the report by itself, it's not conclusive. It has left gaps, Mr. Speaker, in the sense that some bodies need to do something, Mr. Speaker. We are not out of the woods yet. Mr. Speaker, if you look at paragraph 263, that is page 73 of the said report, it's talking about electoral reforms, Mr. Speaker. And it says that within 21 days after the adoption of this report, a panel should be appointed to evaluate the 2022 presidential electoral process. Mr. Speaker, I ask myself, why only the presidential electoral process? Mr. Speaker, there are so many people probably who are aggrieved by the processes, the process of election in 2022, myself being one of them, Mr. Speaker. In the sense that there are people who are trying to use means that are unconstitutional, unconventional, immoral to try and bar some people to run for office. Mr. Speaker, if this report was serious on dealing with matters election, it could have included everybody who was aggrieved by the previous election to come and table their report, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Sifuna? Senator Karungo, Senator Sifuna wishes to inform you. Are you agreeable to that?
Mr. Speaker, he is my counterpart in number of votes that garnered in this, the highest number of votes garnered in this House, so I would allow him.
Proceed, Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, my chair for transport, for being gracious enough to allow me to inform you that the only reason the discussion centered about the presidential election is because the NADCO report had a history, that was the dispute that was brought to the national table. If indeed there was any dispute in any other matter, it was not part of those negotiations, and I can confirm this because I was part of the initial committee. So that is the reason why the report makes no reference at all to the seat for Senator for Kiambu, which you won by a wide margin, and all your opponents accepted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Cheriot?
Mr. Speaker, the two majoritarianists want to mislead this House in the sense that when I moved this report yesterday, and I don't know if Senator Karungo Thango was present in the House, Senator Sifuna, you are right but not fully right. The point is...
Majority Leader, let's get it clear here.
Is it in order?
Are you informing?
No. It's on a point of order against Senator Sifuna, who's...
He's already had his moment.
No, but I sought your attention when he was on his feet.
Majority Leader, I wish you caught my attention when he was still on his feet. And
it was on a point of information.
And so, Majority Leader, unless your point of order is in relation to what Senator Karungo was.
Mr. Speaker, I thought, let me better phrase it then. Can it be a point of information? Because what I want to say is useful for debate of the House. You must appreciate.
Very well.
I drafted this report. It will be useful to the House.
I seek to get permission from Senator Karungo so that you can inform him. Senator Karungo, would you graciously allow the Majority Leader to inform you?
Anytime, Mr. Speaker, from my Majority Leader. Anytime.
No, I'm glad he graciously accepted so that he's not misled while I'm here. Mr. Speaker, if you read the report, it speaks of audit of the electoral process, totally different from a presidential election. Therefore, when we speak about the electoral process, it is for all the 6 positions that were contested. This goes to the issue of registration of voters, the tallying process, the verification exercise. It's about a process, Senator Karungo Thango, and has absolutely nothing to do with the 2022 presidential election. Distinguish the two, and I'd wish that becomes clear, because yesterday I listened to many people refer to it as if it's still a continuation of the petition that was before the Supreme Court on the presidential election. They are totally different, Mr. Speaker, and I thought maybe Senator Thangwa will need to know that, as well as the members who maybe did not get that part well. I tried explaining it yesterday.
Proceed, Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm well informed, and for sure the Leader of Majority is right. I was misguided by the headline that was talking about audit of the 2022 presidential election. But when you go to the recommendation, it is for sure talking about 2022 electoral process. That means I do have an opportunity whenever that panel is formed to go before it and find out what happened, who are behind my woes at that particular time. Because, Mr. Speaker, for us to know where we are going, we must understand where we are coming from. Mr. Speaker, we have to look at the back of the side mirror, Mr. Speaker. We have to look back so that we can have a very democratic country. Mr. Speaker, I agree with this report on the issue of the days that the Supreme Court should take to listen or to hear the presidential election petition. Mr. Speaker, 14 days were not enough. So the report proposes 21 days. I believe that is a good moment to kill the tension that is always there in this country, and of course give parties enough time to do the investigation so that we don't go through what we went through in the previous presidential election petition, whereby we were treated with drama, with Camargo and all the other issues, Mr. Speaker, where people just downloaded images without due diligence. Mr. Speaker, on paragraph 559, that is page 179 of the report, it is talking about impeachment of governors. And if I can read that, Mr. Speaker, page 179, their recommendation, it is a one-liner, and they say, the committee recommends that Parliament shall fast-track enactment of a legislation to give a comprehensive guide to the impeachment process. Mr. Speaker, of course, this is the way. And that's why I don't understand why other people were agitated yesterday when this report just gives you direction of what you need to do from here. Whether it is gender, it's telling you the step that you need to take from here. When it comes to impeachment, it tells the House what we need to do.
What is your point of order, Senator Gloria?
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order, 105, misleading the House. It's not in order that Senator Thangwa tells us that this is more of a direction, because, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of gender, the report has been clear that it is not going to include legislative agenda because that will be handled by a multi-sectoral committee and not the amendments that will come because of this particular report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So what is out of order about that?
Mr. Speaker, he's misleading the House because he's saying that this report is just a beginning and that based on this report, other things including gender will be considered. Mr. Speaker, the report is very clear on the matters gender. The specific recommendations the report has said is that the issue of the two-third gender rule is kicked out and given to a separate committee, a multi-sectoral committee that is supposed to come with a separate report which will be adopted or moved or supported or kicked out as a separate issue, and that is what needs to remain clear as we are talking on the matter of gender.
Senator Karungo. Order, Senator Manzo, please.
Mr. Speaker, the good senator probably did not understand what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is that in every topic, in every subject, the committee was giving a recommendation, and one of the recommendation was form a panel within 21 days. It was not conclusive in its it was not conclusive, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the impeachment of governors, it's telling the Parliament to enact. So it is the Parliament to decide whether to enact or not. And it does not mean that when it tells the Parliament to enact, it's going to enact, you know, directly, Mr. Speaker. So when the same report says that multi-agencies to sit down and come up with a framework matters gender, I mean, it's the same thing the report is saying on any other topic. So I don't see why anybody would be agitated that it was not included. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, I am actually ahead of this report, Mr. Speaker, because the bill is here with you, and I believe it's coming for the first reading within the next few days. The impeachment of governors. And not only the impeachment of governors, the impeachment of speakers of the county assemblies, and the impeachment of members of the cabinet of the counties, Mr. Speaker. So that bill is here. So you can see we are actually ahead of this NADCO committee. If we were given an opportunity to work, we could have done better than what they have done here, Mr. Speaker. So in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, I do support this report. And as I support this bill, I request members, and especially Kenya Kwanza, to support this report as it is, because it will give us an opportunity to do what we have always wanted to do the right thing, because we do have numbers going forward. So by passing this as it is, I mean, it's not going anywhere until we activate the processes as it is required by this report. So it is our time as Kenya Kwanza to show the world and show the country this is the time to give the country the best laws, the best legislation, and the best processes that are required. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity. I support.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this report. Mr. Speaker, first to commend the team that they were able to come together from across the divide and discuss key issues that affect this nation. Mr. Speaker, I hope that in future we can get to hear each other, listen to each other, agree or disagree, and see how to move in a manner that respects the laws of this country. Mr. Speaker, I will not dwell much, but I will speak to a number of the issues in that report. For me, the most important one, which is the cost of living for Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I hope that all leaders particularly in the legislature and the executive will see the need to implement matters relating to the cost of living for Kenyans as the most important issue. Otherwise, all other things amount to negotiations around personal interests of the leadership of this nation. Mr. Speaker, I did not see serious, tangible issues around cost of living, and I would want to urge that the executive make an effort to demonstrate to Kenyans that this particular topic in this report is the most important one and is the one that Kenyans would want to see. And once the cost of living starts coming down, many will be able to see that as leaders, we actually care about them. And as it would be, negotiations or any consultations should first be about the interest of the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, second in importance for me is the issue of the 2/3 gender rule. Mr. Speaker, I am disappointed that NADCO committee elected to relegate a responsibility that was part of the mandate they had on the issue of the 2 gender rule, to give it aside to a committee, to the multi-sectoral committee, instead of addressing it. Mr. Speaker, NADCO members had the public. They received views from various Kenyans. And women of Kenya went and gave views around the 2/3 gender rule. For them to have come to the conclusion that they will not address this issue and put it aside is an insult to the women of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it is relegating this issue to make it a footnote on something that is very serious. And they are doing this at a time when, for the first time in this country, we have a head of state that has put it in writing that he would want to see the issue of the 2/3 gender being resolved. Mr. Speaker, I understand all we can do about this report is speak about it, but we cannot suggest any amendments. I would like to call the head of state and the leader of the opposition to actually confer, and if necessary, to recall the committee of NADCO to sit, even if only for 1 week, in order to relook at one of these agenda items which they decided to throw out instead of addressing. Remember, NADCO is a report of a political consensus. So that political will, if it's there from both sides, they can actually call these people. They did not come from South Africa and elsewhere. They are within Kenya. That they can be told, go back and finish your homework. You did not address one of the TORs. So I want to call on everybody to take this seriously and ensure that matters of the 2/3 gender are included, particularly in any amendment bill that will be drafted as a result of the NADCO report. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issues of delimitation of boundaries, this is an issue that is so important. we should collectively be ashamed that we have not triggered implementation of this issue, and in fact we are in breach because matters delimitation of boundaries for constituencies and wards are provided for with timelines within the constitution, but we have elected not to implement this. So we should look down in shame to the fact that we have not been able to operate in a way that implements this. So I hope that we will successively ensure that the relevant constitutional bills or any legislation are put in place to ensure that we implement these issues. Mr. Speaker, we have the issue of parliamentary funds, and I want to speak to the issue of the oversight fund. Even as we discuss the the funds, NGC, CDF fund, the NGAF, and the oversight funds, I want to urge Parliament to ensure that we structure these funds in a way that will respect the principle of separation of powers, so that we do not have constitutional provisions that are going to anchor development or functions of the executive into the legislature. We need to properly ensure that these funds retain the oversight role of the legislatures. And we would want, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the ongoing current violation around the oversight funds in the Senate is redressed. Otherwise, we are going to have a contradiction in a provision that says the Senate is one when it comes to committees in oversight, but when it comes to funds, then it is separated into elected and the nominated members. Mr. Speaker, when we come to that, we need to ensure that we do what is the right thing. Mr. Speaker, we also have the issue of establishment of offices of the opposition, the official opposition, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary. My view, Mr. Speaker, is, again, as we establish these offices, if we must also respect the principle of ensuring that we are able to have a strong opposition to be able to effectively check the governments of the day. So we must structure it in such a way that the opposition does not become a puppet of the executive. We must ensure we guard that issue. And Mr. Speaker, back on the funds, I would hope that as a Senate, we will ensure any restructuring of funds will respect the devolved governance system and will not end up with laws that are going to claw back on devolution. So we want to ask that whatever legislative instruments come out of this report must only strengthen devolution rather than claw back on devolution. And Mr. Speaker, this happens to be tabled at a time when we are also looking at the budget policy statement, and I have already seen in my initial read a few instances where national government is freely assigning itself functions that are belong to the counties. Mr. Speaker, so I hope that as we implement the recommendations of this committee, we will ensure that we are respecting the devolved governance system. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I hope that we can come up with an implementation mechanism on the various issues in order for this to go beyond just a casual political agreement, so that we are able to tell Kenyans, yes, it was worth it to come together, put the resources into this report, and we are going to implement for the betterment of this country. I thank you, Mr.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on this very weighty National Dialogue Committee report. Let me first begin by appreciating and commending the committee members for a job well done. The industry, Mr. Speaker, the effort, the endurance that went into coming up with this report, Mr. Speaker, is very excellent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the report has a number of very radical and progressive proposals, Mr. Speaker. The proposed recommendations on IEBC reconstitution, Mr. Speaker. The proposed recommendations on how and the timelines within which, as a country, the Supreme Court has been accorded to listen to the presidential petition here and determine the same, Mr. Speaker, has been increased from 14 days to 21 days is fairly progressive, Mr. Speaker. Those of us who are advocates and those who know what it takes, what it means to draft pleadings, file the same and submit arguments in or against their client's case, Mr. Speaker, 14 days surely has been a very short time, so to speak, and I am glad that the committee saw it in their own wisdom to extend that time from 14 days to 21 days, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps if we had the time, even 21 days, in my own view, I feel is still very little time, but this is something better for us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the idea of funding ABC, Mr. Speaker, is also very progressive, Mr. Speaker. For far too long as a country, IBC has always been blaming lack of funds or inadequate funding to carry out, financially be equipped to be able to carry out its functions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the recommendation from the report on staggering the election, Mr. Speaker, is also very progressive. We cannot, as a country, keep on having 6 elections in a day, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I feel the staggering of our elections, Mr. Speaker, is very, very progressive in the sense that the IEBC will have time to prepare for these elections. Even political players and participants will also have time to adequately campaign and prepare for the election, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know much has been said by my colleague senators, and in the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, allow me to just speak to one very crucial recommendation that I feel is very positive from the report, Mr. Speaker. The issue on county boundaries, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the proposal by the committee that Parliament shall within 6 months be allowed to enact the county boundaries bill, so that at least counties can have a chance to resolve their disputes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a person, I'm in court today on behalf of the people of Kanja Ocha in Samburu Chengoni ward because they have a protracted county boundary dispute with the county government of Cliff, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today, the county government of Taita Taveta, Mr. Speaker, is levying revenue, is collecting revenue, is collecting taxes from residents of Makinon Town. Makinon Town, Mr. Speaker, has always been a town that has always been a Kwale County town, Mr. Speaker. We have residents from Kwale who invested there, they vote there. The county government of Kwale has invested heavily on the infrastructure in Makinon Town. To be able to see that the county government of Taita Taveta today is allowed to collect revenue, Mr. Speaker, from a town that is in Kwale County, Mr. Speaker, is really an insult to the people of Kwale. And I am very glad that my colleague, Senator Moses Kajwang, so it fits to bring forth the county boundaries bill here, that for the first time, Mr. Speaker, will allow us as Kenyans, as those of us who practice the law in various courts in the country, to have a legal framework within which we can address county boundaries, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this particular report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Betsiengo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance to speak to this report. The NADCO report, allow me to start by thanking the individuals who were in this committee and did a very fantastic job. They did good work. Mr. Speaker, the issues that are addressed in this report are very good. They, in a way, make our work easier in this legislative house. And indeed, it's encouraging to see that we have a few Kenyans of goodwill who think well of this country. However, Mr. Speaker, the issues, I want to remember the time when this committee was constituted. It had taken some of us to go to the streets to demonstrate. Some of us were forced to take a lot of tear gas, whose effects is still in our bodies. Some of us were to run very, very far away. And when, as a country, we came together and it was seen fit for this committee to be put together and address the issues, Kenyans had in expectations, and even now we have expectations. I want to talk of the office of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to believe this proposal will make...
what is the point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Mr. Speaker, I stand understanding order 105 on statement of fact. Could the senator tell this house, when he says we went to demonstration, is she expecting the culpability of police officers that were injured and property that was destroyed during maandamano? Can she substantiate what he means when he says we? You know, Mr. Speaker, generations will judge us in future if we allow us to slide. Is she Senator Betsy Yengo or her coalition or who? And is she accepting culpability of the loss of lives and affront to the Constitution at that time, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Senator Cherargei, if you are keen enough, you must have heard the senator say some of us had to consume tear gas. And there's some things that are of public knowledge. So let's rest it at that. Proceed and conclude, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for informing my friend, Senator Cherargei, that when I said some of us, it is in public knowledge that we went to the streets to demonstrate. Mr. Speaker, sir, I was saying that the proposal by this committee that of having an office of the opposition leader is good for this country because we have been struggling with the democratic space. And with the office of the opposition established, actually this will give the leadership of this country, as we check on the governance of the administration of the day, that democratic space will increase. Mr. Speaker, I am dismayed that in this report, there is nothing tangible about the cost of living, of which, as I mentioned, that Kenyans have expectations. And as we know, life is unmanageable. It is so disheartening to see that there is nothing tangible about the cost of living, and this did not come out to be addressed conclusively to give Kenyans hope. Kenyans need to be given hope and to know at least life can be bearable when the cost of living is brought down. Mr. Speaker, the biggest issue that I must mention on this report is the dropping of the issue on the 2/3 gender role. Mr. Speaker, I am the ODM Women League president, and the women in this nation look unto me to see how I stand for them, to defend their rights and to push for their interests. It is very displeasing. I don't know what wisdom was used by the members of this committee to drop the issue of 2/3 from the report. Is it that women of this nation do not matter? Is it that the efforts that have been made by trailblazers who have been there before fighting for affirmative action does not matter? It is not good. Mr. Speaker, when this committee was sitting at Bomas of Kenya, different groups of women leaders in this nation, sat and made recommendations. They did proposals. They took reports to the NADGO committee as they sat at Bomas of Kenya. I remember I led the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition team to take our proposals of how we think, even included in NADCO, this will solve the issue of 2/3, how to actualize the 2/3. And many other groups. I remember all women movement groups in this country did presentations. Why were women allowed to do presentation if then this was to be dropped from this report? It is not good. Women of this nation are not happy. And I thought myself, because Mr. Speaker, I remember in this house, I had a bill on the actualization of the 2/3. I was approached by the CS of gender to drop my bill or to put it to hold as I spoke to you, Mr. Speaker, about it, so that the CS of gender would put up together a multi-sectoral working group that will work on this. How does it sound to have the same dropped from NADCO report and the multi-sectoral working group being given more time, about 6 months? Kenya is not at standstill. Things are not stopping to wait for this team to bring up their report. Mr. Speaker, I understand we may not do anything about bringing back the issue, but I would borrow words from one of us that if the same committee could be recalled, and the good leader of majority looking at me right now sat in that committee, if only they could accept to sit for 1 week and at least bring back the issue of the actualization of 2/3 in this country. And the women will fight for the majority leader, will fight for the whip, will fight for every man in this country. If only we feel that men care for the women of this nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at that, I say the report is good, but the issue of women should be considered. Thank you, sir.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also arise to support. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me start by commending the team that sat together. Indeed, the fact that they were able to sit together and come with some conclusion, it is a great achievement in itself. In a country where people are used to facing each other, are used to talking at each other, are used to fighting each other, are used to disagreeing just for the sake of disagreeing, it is indeed a great achievement that they've come with a bit of a recommendation that will give us a platform upon which, Mr. Speaker, sir, we can build a way forward. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not lost to us that there are quite a number of things that we did when we passed the 2010 Constitution. There are some of those, and I belong to those who believe that we could have changed the Constitution and then emigrate it. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I do remember in our desperation to have a new Constitution, there was one camp that said tupitishe tubadilishe baadaye, and there are those who say tubadilishe alafu tupitishe. This report, Mr. Speaker, sir, it seeks to redress the issues that were omitted, and I find it very bold that despite the differences we have in the political arena, people can come up with a suggestion on the way that we can move forward this country. I'm fully aware that, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this country belongs to all of us, despite our political inclination. It is indeed very important that we start looking at those issues, the perennial issues that will come every 5 years and face this country like we've never had an election before. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of IEBC must be decided in sober mind. The issue of 2/3 gender rule must also be decided. It is not lost to Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we need to have our sisters, our mothers, our daughters equally in power. At least, Mr. Speaker, I think you must all appreciate, currently as it is, we have 7 women governors who have not been appointed, but they've gone out there and fought for to be elected. Some of them even have flawed very, very strong men. Mr. Speaker, sir, moving forward, this is a spirit that we must encourage. we must have a platform, a fair playground for everybody. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not also lost to me that we do waste a lot of time trying to engage on things that we could have solved several decades ago. I find this report, Mr. Speaker, sir, that it is a very, very good stepping stone for us to be able to handle issues, for us to be able to encourage ourselves to look at facts as they are and moving forward to conclusively solve them. Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be deceptive for us to say that the report did not address the cost of living. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is known to everybody in this House that the dollar, which has been skyrocketing, using its own dynamic, is now coming down. Mr. Speaker, sir, we all know that cost of living is a combination of several factors. One of them is the conducive environment upon which people work. It is the good outlook that people have. Currently, Mr. Speaker, sir, without the intervention of the government, because of the good lanes that we've got, because of the subsidized fertilizer that we've got, the cost of living, the cost of flour that was costing about 300 shillings just the other day, now is going to about 100 and still going down. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are some of the things that you cannot hold on a paper. These are some of the things that can only be gotten and can only be won by a combination of good policy, effective framework, accountability, and governance. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want us to challenge ourselves as we sit in this House that this document as it is, it gives us an ample document upon which we can be able to negotiate, we can be able to address, we can be able to relook, and we can be able to get a conclusion and a solution to most of the problems that face this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, this can only happen if we come with utmost good faith. This can only happen if we start not looking at ourselves as them against us, when we start not talking at each other, but talking with each other, so that we can be able to say this country needs people and leaders who can bring a solution that the future generations one day will say, yes, the 13th Parliament, when they sat and met, when they had the NADCO report, they were able to provide a platform upon which to build a solid country. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I commend the team that sat together, despite the political differences and the political temperatures at that time, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a commendable document, maybe not a magical document, but it is highly commendable, a platform upon which we are able to form the basis of future negotiations. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think everybody has learned that it does not need to take anybody to go to the streets, to throw stones, to take tear gas, that we can change this country by simply having a dialogue, talking to one another, and deciding this is the way we want to move forward. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this document. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to commend the team that came together and sat and compiled this report. The only issue that I want to raise, Mr. Speaker, is about the two-third gender. This is an issue that has really been eating Kenya for a long, long time. And it is not very easy for any woman to go out there and come back with a seat. It takes a lot of strength for any woman to go out there and vie together with men and come back with a seat. Because of the bullying that we get from the men, one has to build a very thick skin to be able to stand against the abusive words of men and all the bullying of men. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm not very happy that this two-third gender was dropped from the report. And remembering that when the president was campaigning, he even promised women that it will be 50%, and not even two-third, but 50%. So for them to have dropped it, was not the right thing. Mr. Speaker, sir, about the opposition leader position, this is even overdue, because I remember I was in BBI and we had recommended on a BBI report that we should have opposition leader position with a shadow cabinet and fully funded by the government, so that there must be checks and balances in the executive by the opposition leader. And so I'm really happy about it. Mr. Speaker, sir, another issue that we had recommended in BBI is about the MCRs receiving 20 million to be able to work without pleading and begging for mercies from the governors. Right now, the senators, we have received the oversight fund. Women rep have the gap, MPs have the CDF money, but the MCRs are left out, and I actually expected this to be in this report, because in BBI we had recommended that, and I'm also asking, like two of the senators who have spoken before me, if this can be held a little bit for the gender things to be put in and for the MCRs to be considered with the World Development Fund, and any other thing that was left out. Mr. Speaker, sir, what I'm not happy about is the cost of living, because cost of living is very high
Senator
on this.
Kavindu, just a minute. What is your point of order, Senator Gloria?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Understanding order 105. Mr. Speaker, Senator Kavindu has said that we have received the Senate Oversight Fund. Mr. Speaker, I think maybe she's referencing to the elected senators, because the nominated senators who are still playing oversight have actually not received the Senate Oversight Fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There is a point of information. Proceed, Senator Kavindu. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senator Gloria, don't be wasting a lot of time.
Just proceed with
Thank you.
Contribution.
The cost of living, Mr. Speaker, is very high. We who are going down to the ground know what the ground is saying and how the ground is feeling the cost of living. Because wherever we go, even some people have no food. Even as we talk, as we say that unga imeteremka, people are crying, people are having it rough. You saw, Mr. Speaker, even the e-citizen way of paying school fees. You saw a clip that was running around. A man took literally goats to a shopkeeper and said, put this in the e-citizen so that I can pay school fees. Put this and I'll go and bring the firewood. I mean, some of these things, they are good, but there are people who cannot be able to do it. So we must also check how those people are going to be catered for in the government, so that they can also live comfortably. And I pray and I beg that the taxes be reduced, because Kenyans are suffering. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support this report.
Senator George Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also add my voice in this report. Mr. Speaker, allow me first of all to appreciate the members of this committee for a job well done in producing this report. Honorable Speaker, there are so many recommendations in this committee, and of importance to me, Mr. Speaker, is the recommendation that the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection shall expand the scope of Social Protection Fund to include all persons with severe disabilities in this country, Mr. Speaker, and also the recommendation that in consultation with the National Council, Honorable Speaker, that the correct data for persons with disabilities in this country shall be corrected. Honorable Speaker, I also like the recommendation on the pending bills. This country, Mr. Speaker, the county governments have put so many Kenyans into poverty because we passed the budget here. We recommend that the pending bills be paid and nothing happens. And Mr. Speaker, I recommend the committee for that recommendation. Honorable Speaker, The recommendation on the operationalization of the Public Benefit Organization Acts of 2013 is welcome to the civil society of this country, Mr. Speaker, because we appreciate that the government cannot do anything, and this will enable the civil societies to mobilize funds to help the vulnerable in this country, especially persons with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, I'm also in support of the recommendation by this committee that county government should be held to account and to ensure that not more than 35% of the ordinary revenue is used to remunerate the staff. Honorable Speaker, what is happening in our country is that the county government has become employment bureaus, and what is happening is that we are only employing people and very little is happening in terms of development. With these few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the adoption of this report. Thank you.
Senator Mwaruma.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa hii fursa ili kuchangia kwa hii ripoti ya NADCO. Kwanza niwape shukrani viongozi wetu wa pande zote mbili, Rais na kiongozi wa upinzani Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, kwa kukubali ya kwamba ni vyema tukutane ama kuwe na kamati ya kukutana ili mazungumzo yafanywe. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, si mara ya kwanza ambayo tumejipata katika hali ya kuzungumza ili kuhakikisha kwamba Kenya inaenda mbele. Wakati wa kwanza kulikuwa na mazungumzo kama haya ni mwaka wa 1997 kwa ile ambayo iliitwa Ufungamano Initiative. Wakati tukafanya mazungumzo na kukawa na pande zote mbili za kisiasa kukubaliana ya kwamba tuwe na tume ya uchaguzi ambayo Wakenya wote wanaiunga mkono. Mwaka 2008 Mheshimiwa Spika, kulikuwa pia na mazungumzo baada ya Kenya kufanya uchaguzi mwaka 2007, na mambo pia hayakuwa sawa na Wakenya wakakubaliana kwamba ni vyema wakutane ili wazungumze. Mwaka 2018 Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati wa ile ambayo inaitwa handshake, pia aliyekuwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta pia walikutana na kiongozi wa upinzani Raila Odinga pia, na kukawa na ile inaitwa BBI, kwa sababu ilionekana ya kwamba Kenya kama tutaendelea mbele kuna watu wanafinyika na hawasikii kama wana amani. Katika mazungumzo yale ya BBI, ingawaje hayakufikia mwisho kwa sababu ya koti ilitoa mwelekeo kwamba kulikuwa na kumaliza katiba ikufuatwa vizuri, mambo kadha wa kadha yalijitokeza ambayo yalipelekea kubadilishwa kwa katiba. Saizi tena Mheshimiwa Spika, mwaka wa 2022 tulifanya uchaguzi na pia kukawa hali ya kutoelewana na matokeo ya siasa ama ya uchaguzi, na tukafikia ya kwamba ni vyema pande mbili za kisiasa zikutane ili kufanya mazungumzo. Na hii ndio ripoti ambayo tunaijadili ambayo inaitwa National Dialogue Committee report. Mheshimiwa Spika, tuko na fursa nzuri ya kupeleka Kenya mbele na kufanya mazungumzo ambayo yatapeleka Kenya mbele katika mfumo wa vyama vingi vya kisiasa. Na kwa kizungu sahi tuko katika kitu inaitwa constitutional moment. Wakati wa kupitisha katiba ya 2010 tulisema kwamba kuna vipengee ambavyo ni vizuri na vingine ambavyo si vibaya kama 20%, na kukawa na maelewano ya kwamba tupitishe hii katiba, lakini ifikie wakati tuiangalie tena. Wakati wa hii kamati ikifanya kazi yake, na kamati ilifanya kazi nzuri sana, kulikuwa na uhusishaji wa wananchi ama public participation, na masuala mengi yaliibuka. Na katika mapendekezo ya kamati ya NADCO walisema kuna mambo ambayo yatasuluhishwa ama mapendekezo ambayo yatatekelezwa kwa kubadilisha katiba, na mengine yatatekelezwa kwa kuunda sera na sheria za kuhakikisha kwamba mambo ambayo yamejadiliwa ama mapendekezo ambayo yamejitokeza yatatekelezwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, La kwanza ni mambo ya upigaji kura, electoral justice kwa kizungu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kulipendekezwa ya kwamba kufanyiwe audit ama uchunguzi wa vile kura
Boni, you're out of order.
Wa vile kura ilienda, na nashukuru kwa hilo pendekezo, kwa sababu tukishafanya uhasibu wa vile kura ilipigwa, basi tutajua ukweli wa vile mambo yaliendelea. La pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambalo linanifanya niunge mkono hii ripoti ni mambo ya kuweka CDF, ngaf na pesa ya oversight ya maseneta. Mheshimiwa Spika, maendeleo mengi yamefanyika katika magatuzi yetu kupitia hazina ya maeneo bunge na ile ya ngafu. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono hilo, na pia naunga mkono kuweka katika katiba hii pesa ya oversight ya Senate, kwa sababu tayari kama maseneta tuko mashinani na tunafanya uangalizi ama oversight ya kutosha kuhakikisha kwamba pesa inayoenda kwa magatuzi ambayo inatumika na magavana imetumika vizuri, ili wananchi wetu wapate huduma inayofaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna mambo ya mipaka, na ripoti imesema kwamba kuundwe tume ama kuundwe kamati ama bunge iunde sheria ya kuangalia kwamba mipaka imeangaziwa, na kuna wasemaji wengi wamesema kama Seneta Chimera, Seneta wa Makueni, wameongea kuhusu mambo ya mipaka. Mambo ya mipaka ni swala sugu sana Kenya. Katika hii seneti nimeleta haya maswala ya mipaka kati ya Kwale na Taita Taveta na Makueni, na pia tukienda kule Isiolo na Meru, tukienda Kericho na Kisumu. Maswala haya ni nyeti sana, na nafikiri hii kamati isaidiane na bunge ama bunge itekeleze mswada wa County Boundaries Act ambao utaangazia mambo ya kusuluhisha mambo ya mipaka ya counties, kwa sababu ni swala sugu na kuna wakati hili swala linaleta maafa. Mheshimiwa Spika, la lingine Mheshimiwa Spika ambalo lilijitokeza katika ule mchakato wote wa NADCO ni kwamba kuna constituency ama maeneo bunge yanaitwa kwa kizungu saved constituencies, kwa sababu idadi yake haijafikia ile idadi ya maeneo bunge. Kwa mfano Taita Taveta kuna maeneo bunge kadhaa ambayo hajafikisha ile nambari, na katika kutekeleza mapendekezo ya hii ripoti inatakikana zile constituencies ndogo ndogo zihifadhiwe, na zile constituency ambazo zina watu wengi basi zipate kupatiwa constituency zaidi, ili kuhakikisha kwamba pesa constituency hazipungui kulingana na kipengee cha 189 cha katiba, kwa sababu ni kweli kwamba kuna constituency ambazo ni kubwa, lakini kuna zingine ziko ndogo, lakini kwa sababu ile CDF ama ile hazina ya CDF imeleta pesa nyingi sana kwa constituency ama kwa magatuzi, si vizuri ya zile constituency, Mheshimiwa Spika, kupunguzwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mengine ambayo yalijitokeza ni kwamba kuna rasilimali ambazo ziko kwa counties na counties zingine hazifaidi kutokana na hizo rasilimali. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa mfano Taita Taveta kuna mbuga za wanyama ambayo 62% ya Taita Taveta iko katika Tsavo National Park. Nashukuru kwa sababu kuna wakati rais alitembea kule Taita Taveta na akasema ni vyema kuwe na mgao wa 50 kwa yale makusanyo ya Tsavo National Park, lakini mpaka sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, hilo halijatekelezwa. Na katika hii report ama kutekeleza hii report, nafikiri kutakuwa na msukumo fulani ili kaunti zote zifaidi kutokana na rasilimali zao ambazo ziko katika kaunti zao. Kwa mfano kule Narok kuna Masai Mara National Park ambayo moja kwa moja inafaidi Narok County. Kule Kajiado kuna Amboseli National Park, na rais juzi alisema kwamba ile Amboseli ifaidi moja kwa moja watu wa Kajiado, na saizi katika mchakato pia sisi tutasukuma ya kwamba ile Tsavo National Park ifaidi mtu wa Taita Taveta moja kwa moja, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na katika ule mchakato wa kuangalia vigezo vya kugawanya ushuru katika counties ama revenue sharing formula ambayo inakuja mwaka wa 2025, tutasukuma na kuhimiza wenzangu pia watuunge mkono ili kuwe na kigezo ama parameter ya kuhakikisha kwamba zile rasilimali ambazo ziko katika county, pia makusanyo ama ile pesa inayokusanywa kutoka kwa zile resources basi imefaidi ama imewekwa kama kigezo cha kugawanya ushuru ambao unaenda kwa counties zetu, ambao Mheshimiwa Speaker unaitwa shareable revenue. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kusema kwamba mambo ya ugatuzi kwetu ni muhimu sana, na ningefurahia kama hii NADCO report ingependekeza ya kwamba kuwe na pesa nyingi za
Senator Mariam. Senator Chesang.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to make my contribution on the NADCO report. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the committee which sat, and let me just start by saying I want to appreciate the good job they did. Now that this report also brought peace to this country, let me just start by appreciating them for taking their time for this dialogue. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Sifuna, because I heard him yesterday say that he withdrew from this committee, from this dialogue. I was just trying to imagine that if he was present, this dialogue would still, this committee would still be, the dialogue will still be continuing till now, but he said he withdrew for the betterment of a good report. Madam Speaker, matters food security, and I've heard so many senators talking about our cost of living. Madam Speaker, I believe the government has tried its best to try and reduce the cost of living by first and foremost trying to provide subsidy fertilizers to all our farmers. I, being a farmer from Trans Nzoia, I have seen that, and I'm sure many farmers in this country have can testify that they've had subsidy fertilizer at a very low cost at 3,500, and now the government is giving subsidy fertilizers at 2,500, which is already in my county, Madam Speaker. Secondly, I'd like also to urge the government that to make sure that we sort this out, Madam Speaker, I want to maybe give my recommendation or my suggestion to the government that the government has so much land, and we have many of our jobless youths outside here. We appreciate the government on trying to create or maybe put ICT hubs across the countries. We have seen the government trying to create jobs in different other avenues, but we still have many of our youths who, maybe not all of them, Madam Speaker, can go to these ICT hubs, or maybe most of them will not go to maybe, as the President said, Kaptengele to access these ICT hubs, or not. Maybe all of them have no interest in terms of in matters ICT. So we think, I just wanted to say that the government should train, maybe provide land and train our youths on farming, so that we can assist each other. It matters food security, and also create jobs to our youths. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, I'd like to support what Senator Kavindu talked about in terms of the governors who are misusing funds, Madam Speaker. I'd like to say that I support the senator from Kiambu's bill by giving the MCS their freedom, making sure that they receive their funds, and also, Madam Speaker, support that we as senators from various counties would be part, or maybe would be co-chairs of the committees that call our governors. It does not make sense when a senator from a certain area is just called to a committee as a friend of the committee. So we want to be part of and parcel of following these funds and making sure that we do our oversight well. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I'd like also to support the women in this house and say that let me support because I love women, okay? No, I want to support the two-third gender rule, that it's also, it should be included, because I believe in the saying that says, what a man can do, a woman can do better. And I can see, Madam Speaker, you're smiling. So, Madam Speaker, I'd also like to appreciate the fact that the other day when we were having our PG in Naivasha, the President confirmed that all our women in schools are going to receive free sanitary towels, the same way as our men receive free condoms everywhere. No, I'm trying to, it's the truth. When you go to each and every toilet, you'll find free condoms. And I know even Senator Eddie has a condom in his pocket, but I know it is not a necessity. So I think I want to support the fact that I therefore I support this report, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
What's your point of order, Senator Eddie?
Madam Speaker, you see, Migori people are watching this particular debate. And Migori people, and by the way, Madam Speaker, I'm standing under standing order number 101 both content of speech and improper motive. You see, Madam Speaker, Migori people are watching this debate. And they know they have a man. And this man is not any mischievous man. Because I think that in my culture, from where I come from, anybody who uses condoms, Madam Speaker, I have to pronounce myself on this because my name has been mentioned a very, very serious thing. Madam Speaker, it can be misconstrued as somebody who is not straight and doing his things in straight ways. And not committed.
Senator Eddie,
so, Madam Speaker,
Senator Eddie, please just address yourself to the point of order.
Yes, so the point of order here is that the Senator Alan Chesang has called my name in a way that...
You say under 104, please look at the...
101.
Okay.
So, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to ask my good friend, Senator Chesang, to apologize, withdraw, and also tell the House that if I have got any act to commit, I will not commit it under any darkness.
Senator Eddie, please sit down. Senator Chesang, either withdraw the comment you've made and apologize, or confirm to the House that Senator Eddie has a condom in his pocket. Please.
Madam Speaker, I think, Madam Speaker,
Order members, let's just...
Senator Eddie did not let me finish. You know, Senator Eddie is my good friend. What I was trying to say...
Senator, it's not what you were trying to say. It is what you have said, so... And I actually heard you said he has a condom in his pocket. Please.
I said might, because it is not necessarily that he takes these things to go and use them. What I was trying to say, Madam Speaker.
Senator Jesang, please either confirm that he has or withdraw, please.
I said might, Madam Speaker. I said Senator Eddie might, and why I said this, Madam Speaker.
Senator, please listen to me. You either confirm or withdraw and apologize, please.
Madam Speaker, I cannot withdraw something I didn't say. I said Senator Eddie might, because let me explain, Madam Speaker. I said we have these things for free and we do not necessarily need them. The way our women need sanitary towels. Yes.
That's what I heard clearly.
Yes. But so what I said, Madam Speaker, is Senator Eddie is my friend, and sometimes we go to the short call together and we take these things for fun and we don't need them. So he might even have. That's what I said, Madam Speaker.
Senator, that is not what you said. If we go to the Hansard, you will find that's not what you said. Senator Eddie?
Madam Speaker, you know you're taking this matter lightly. Actually, Madam Speaker, I don't know whether there's sanction for things like defamation and other things, but I want to plead, Madam Speaker, and I won't let this go, that tomorrow, that you must confirm with you must confirm with answered now, if Senator Chesang said might, or he said I have a condom in my pocket. I want the answer to confirm. And if answer confirms otherwise, Madam Speaker, I would want serious damages compensated here. Because I was expecting that perhaps Alan Chesang wanted to ask the ladies on the majority side who are excited about this matter to come here and confirm. You know, Madam Speaker, all these things you just confirm. But I think that it's appropriate for the senator to withdraw and apologize to me for that kind of defamation.
Senator Eddie, can you sit down? I have just conferred with the clerks who said, who indicate that Senator Chesang said you could be having a condom in your pocket. Now, that is not saying that you have a condom in there. So, Senator, to the extent that that reference to Senator Eddie is offensive to him, I request that you withdraw. Please do so that we move on.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw and apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Senator Asige?
Thank you, Speaker. Sometimes the conversations that happen in this House really are mind-boggling when there are pertinent issues that need to be discussed, which include this NADCO report, and I wish to start my contribution, Speaker, by beseeching the committee that they go away and consider an addendum to be made to this report, taking into account all of the issues that have been raised already by colleague senators that are missing in the report, as well as those that will come after my own. I believe that an addendum is not something that is far-fetched. It is still within the power of this committee to hopefully decide to move in that direction. And so I beg the mover of this motion to consider that as we continue. Speaker, I'll immediately draw attention to Chapter 3 of the report, particularly paragraph 522 on page 168, which addresses outstanding constitutional matters regarding governance. This section emphasizes the need of national unity and inclusivity in public appointments, delving into the values and principles in Article 232 of the Constitution. Among these principles is the vital involvement of citizens in policy-making processes. Furthermore, the report underscores the constitutional commitment to providing fair and equal opportunities for appointment, training, and career advancement across all tiers of public service of men and women, members of all ethnic groups, and persons with disabilities. Speaker, it's important to highlight that we are still far from meeting constitutional values and principles, particularly in the inclusion of persons with disabilities. Case in point, Speaker, of this committee itself. Diversity was met in terms of gender. There were men and women on the committee. Diversity was met in terms of different political parties being seen in the committee. Also, we had diversity in terms of different parts of the country as well being included, represented in this committee. But unfortunately, I am not aware of any committee member that had disability. And this is exactly the reason why this is to the mover of this motion. This is exactly why we say diversity is imperative to have when it comes to any decision-making table, because there will be voices and perspectives that may be left behind by virtue of not having that seat filled on that table. And in my case, in my submission, I am unfortunately disappointed that disability or persons with disabilities were not represented in this committee. Currently, only approximately 1.4% of the Public Service Commission's employees are PWDs, Speaker, falling short of the constitutional threshold by 3.6%. And in the private sector, I believe reports say that Safaricom are at around 1.2%, still below the 5% threshold. The objective of my first recommendation to the addendum of this report is to amend the County Government Act, number 17 of 2012, so as to provide for representation of persons with disabilities in the county assemblies. Article 177 of the Constitution, as read with Section 7 of the County Government Act 2012, provides for the membership of a county assembly. Section 7(1)(a) of the Act specifically provides that the county assembly shall comprise of 6 nominated members contemplated in 177 of the Constitution. This provision only gives an overall figure of the nominated slots, but does not decluster the slots, Speaker. What exactly does this mean? This means that of the 6 slots in every county assembly that should represent special interest groups, because the 6 are not clearly allocated to say, for example, 2 will belong to persons with disabilities, 2 will belong to youth, and 2 will belong to workers. Because there is not that clarification in the Constitution, what has happened for years, and even in the last election, Speaker, is that county assemblies continue to run unconstitutionally because they do not have any PWD representative within them. In the last election of 2022, Speaker, there have been at least 21 county assemblies without any representation of disability in them, including this one that we're sitting in today, Nairobi, the capital city. Of approximately around 120 MCAs, Speaker, there are none with disabilities, even though the Constitution says that there should be representation within every county assembly. Uasin Gishu is also one of them, as well as Narok and several others in the 21 that are listed. As we said, the issues arising, parties submitted these nominations, but placed us as PWDs at the tail end, and therefore we are left out in representation. My recommendation, therefore, seeks to implement the principle of at least 5% of members in elective and appointive bodies to be persons with disabilities. This will ensure adequate representation of PWDs in the county assemblies. The objective of my second recommendation, Speaker, to the NADCO report is to amend the Constitution 2010 to provide for additional seats in the National Assembly and the Senate in order to implement the principle of at least 5% of the members of the public in elective and public appointments should be persons with disabilities. My recommendation proposes to amend Articles 97 and 98 of the Constitution to ensure that 5% of members of the National Assembly and the Senate are representatives of persons with disability. This is intended to increase representation of PWDs in Parliament so as to address the historical exclusion of persons with disabilities from decision-making processes, like this one, resulting in laws and policies that do not fully reflect our unique challenges and needs. By ensuring the adequate representation of persons with disabilities in government, my recommendation aims to ensure that our voices are heard and our interests and needs are taken into account in all decision-making processes. Madam Speaker, it will interest you to know that right now, out of 67 senators in this House, there are only 2 with disabilities, which is not 5%, as has been enshrined in the Constitution. That means that we are moving and operating unconstitutionally. In the National Assembly, there are about 350 members of Parliament and only about 159, I apologize, 359, thank you, members of Parliament in the National Assembly, and only approximately 11 are persons with disabilities. And that is a mixture of both elected and nominated, which means that 5% of 359, we are below that for sure. Again, running contrary to the Constitution. And we are Parliament, the people who are meant to be the custodians of the law. My recommendation further amends Article 91 and 101(1) of the Constitution, which provides for allocations of party list seats and vacancies in such seats, respectively, as a consequence of the amendment in Article 97 of the Constitution, if passed. Speaker, as the Treasury reviews cash transfers for older persons, as outlined in paragraph 458 at 1 on page 144 of the NADCO report, I notice a lack of mention of persons with disabilities. It talks about the elderly cash transfer, and I wish, Speaker, for the mover to encourage and to beseech the rest of the committee to be very specific and very intentional on emphasizing every single word, because once one word or 2 words are omitted,
Senator Kenywa.
Asante sana Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanzia mwanzo nataka kuunga mkono ripoti hii ya NADCO Bwana Speaker, Bi Speaker, na niseme ya kwamba niwapongeze viongozi ambao walikutana katika ile kamati na kuweza kujadili, hasa Senator kiongozi wa wengi Cheriot pamoja na Umugeni pamoja na wale wengine. Bi Speaker, Bi Speaker, mapendekezo ambayo walipendekeza kuhusu CDF, kuhusu GAF, kuhusu Senate Oversight Fund, Bi Speaker, mimi naunga mkono. Vile vile naunga mkono hii ofisi ambayo walipendekeza, ofisi ya kiongozi wa upinzani, Bi Speaker. Na vile vile mapendekezo ambayo walileta katika tume ya uchaguzi, Bi Speaker. Lakini Bi Speaker, ni kinaya kwa sababu ukiangalia wale ambao mambo yale ambao walienda kujadili, Bi Speaker, yangejadiliwa katika bunge hili, Bi Speaker, bila kupoteza muda na wakati. Bi Speaker, msingi ambao tunaweka katika nchi hii ya kusema ya kwamba ni mpaka kuwe na vurugu, fitina na si hali katika nchi yetu, Bi Speaker, ndio tuweze kukutana na kujadili mambo haya, Bi Speaker, inavunja moyo sana. Kwa mfano, mimi nikiangalia mapendekezo yote ambayo yamependekezwa hapa yangefanywa katika kamati zetu za bunge, na wale ambao walikuwa kiongoza haya maongezi Speaker, ni watu ambao wako katika bunge hili. Wale waliosema ya kwamba hayo mapendekezo yote yangeongewa katika bunge hili waligonga ndipo Speaker. Lakini tukiweka msingi kama huu Speaker, ati kila wakati vile vile ukikumbuka mwaka 1997 IPPG ni vile vile kunakuwa na mvutano ndiposa watu wanaketi chini kuongea. Nasikia hata japokuwa vile mimi bwana Speaker na wapongeza viongozi hawa kwa kuketi chini. Speaker, tumekuwa tukiketi hapa, mheshimiwa kiongozi wa wengi Senator Cheriot wamekuwa katika jumba hili na senator wa kutoka Nyamira Omogeni, na wangeketi na waweze kuongea Speaker. Kwa hivyo si vizuri kwa sababu mambo haya yakiwekwa katika kumbukumbu itaonekana sisi tulikuwa tayari hatuelewi jambo ambalo tunapaswa kufanya, kwa sababu haya mapendekezo yote ambayo yameletwa hapa Speaker ni mapendekezo ambayo tungeweza kuyafanya katika bunge hili na vile vile kubadilisha katiba, pendekezo yatoka katika bunge hili. Kwa hivyo bwana Speaker, naunga mkono, lakini nikiwa najua ya kwamba Eddie ambaye ameketi hapa Speaker, mimi nikiwa natoka kwa upande wa serikali na yeye akitoka upande wa upinzani, hakuna siku hata moja hatukuwa tukiongea na yeye. Tuliongea kwa utulivu katika kamati ambazo tunakutana. Kwa hivyo haya maneno ambayo bwana Speaker yanasemwa ya kwamba ati ni utulivu, ati viongozi wakakutana, Speaker, hiyo ni kinaya, kwa sababu Cheriot kila wakati wanaongea na kiongozi wa wachache katika bunge la kitaifa Opiyo Wandayi. Speaker, ni vizuri tuweze kuchunga rasilimali zetu na mali, na vile vile badala ya sisi ambao tumechaguliwa bwana Speaker kuchukua fursa na jukumu tuliopewa badala ya kufanya yale ambayo tunapaswa kufanya. Nasikia wengi wanaongea hapa kusema ya kwamba ati waliketi chini ndio waweze kuongea kuhusu gharama ya maisha Speaker. Utaongeaje kuhusu gharama ya maisha Speaker, na hayo mambo tayari yalikuwa yamezingatiwa vizuri na serikali ilikuwa imeweka misingi ambayo ni dhabiti bwana Speaker. Tayari mambo ya mbolea bei ilikuwa imepunguzwa, na nataka kushukuru kwa sababu ukiangalia hata takriban gunia za mahindi ambazo tayari zimevunwa kwa sababu ya mbolea ambayo ilikuwa imepeanwa Speaker iliweza kuonekana. Kwa hivyo Speaker, tunaweza tukafanya mambo mengi hapa kuongea na kusema ya kwamba ndio tunapongeza, lakini mimi nikiangalia mapendekezo yote haya yaliyoletwa na kitabu hiki kikubwa kimeandikwa zaidi ya kurasa 500 Speaker, haya mambo yangefanywa katika hili bunge, na tunakosea Kenya heshima na shukrani kwa sababu walichagua tufanye hii kazi. Baada ya sisi kuchaguliwa tufanye hii kazi, ndugu yangu mheshimiwa Cheriot senator wetu pamoja na Omogeni, badala ya kufanyia kazi yao hapa, wana moja kwa moja kiguu na njia mpaka Bomas of Kenya. Speaker, inavunja moyo si kwangu tu mbali kwa Wakenya. Ndio nawapongeza, walifanya kazi nzuri, lakini kama wangeifanyia hapa na kuchunga mali ya Wakenya Speaker, ingekuwa ni bora zaidi. Kuendelea mbele, msingi tunaweka si mzuri, unavunja moyo, na si kwangu peke yangu, kwa Wakenya wote. Kwa sababu Wakenya ambao waliuawa katika maandamano, tutawaambia vipi? Walisaidika vipi na hizi pendekezo ambazo tunazileta hapa Speaker? Mali ambazo za Wakenya ambazo zilichomwa Speaker. Ni vizuri tuwe watu wanaongea ukweli na tuwe wakweli, si watu ambao Speaker tunaficha maneno, mnasema maneno mengi. Lakini ni vizuri wanasema leta utulivu, kwa sababu Mswahili anasema wengi wape. Kwa hivyo mimi nasimama naunga mkono taarifa hii, na nasema isiwe jambo ambalo ni msingi ambao tunaweka ambao hautakuwa mzuri kwetu. Speaker, naunga mkono na nasema asante.
Senator Faki.
Asante Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii pia kuunga mkono ripoti ya kamati ya uwiano ambayo iliwasilishwa na kiongozi wa wengi katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwanza nitoe pongezi kwa viongozi wawili wakuu ambao walikubaliana kuwe na kamati hii, na vile vile pia wanakamati wote ambao walifanya kazi pamoja na watumishi wao kuhakikisha kwamba wamekuja na ripoti ambayo inakubalika. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nijiunge na katibu wa chama chetu cha ODM kwa japokuwa hii ripoti ina mambo mengi ambayo yamezungumziwa, kuna mambo ya kimsingi ambayo hayakutajwa, hayakuzungumziwa kwa ufasaha Mheshimiwa Spika. Moja hapo ikiwa ni kuongezeka kwa bei za bidhaa muhimu katika nchi yetu. Yaani gharama ya maisha imeweza kuongezeka marudufu kiasi ambacho wengi katika wananchi wa Kenya hawawezi kuweka mkate ama kuweka ugali katika meza yao kwa kila siku. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo ni jambo la muhimu sana kwa sababu kuongezeka kwa gharama za maisha Mheshimiwa Spika kunasababisha watu kupata shida kuweza kujikimu kimaisha. Wanafunzi wanakosa kwenda shule Mheshimiwa Spika, wagonjwa wanakosa matibabu, na hiyo yote imesababishwa na kuongezeka kwa bei za bidhaa muhimu na hiyo kuongezeka kwa maisha kwa jumla. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kwa mfano kuongezeka kwa gharama ya VAT kwa mafuta, swala hili lilikuwa hapo awali katika mwaka 2018 nafikiri 19, na serikali ilikuwa hapo wakati ule ilileta mswada katika bunge la kitaifa na ikapunguzwa kutoka 16% ikarejea mpaka 8%, na hivyo ikasababisha kupungua pakubwa kwa bei za bidhaa muhimu kama vile mafuta na mengineyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika magazeti yetu kila siku kuna ripoti kadha wa kadha ambazo zinaonesha ubadilifu wa pesa za umma katika nchi yetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, utasikia leo kumetakana milioni 600 kurekebisha nyumba ya naibu wa rais. Leo kunatakana milioni ngapi kurekebisha wapi, kunatakana bilioni ngapi kurekebisha wapi. Zote hizo Mheshimiwa Spika ni pesa za umma ambazo zinafujwa na zinatumika kwa hali ambayo si ya kisawasawa. Wakati upande mwingine Mheshimiwa Spika, wale walala hoi wanaendelea kulala hoi na wanaendelea kupata shida na wanaendelea kupata shida kusomesha watoto wao Mheshimiwa Spika, kiasi ambacho wengi wanakosa shule na wengi wanakuwa wakora ama wanakuwa majambazi na hali yao maisha yanabadilika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wenzetu upande ule mwingine wamesema kwamba kwa sababu kulikuwa na vurugu wakati kabla ya kamati hii, basi wale ambao mali zao ziliharibiwa wanafaa waliporidhaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna maisha ambayo yalipotea. Na wengi wetu Mheshimiwa Spika walipigwa risasi na wakauliwa na vikosi vya usalama. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata kiongozi wa wachache aliwahi kushikwa wakati anatoka hapa bunge anakwenda katika nyumbani kwake asubuhi mapema Mheshimiwa Spika. Na kushikwa kwake Mheshimiwa Spika kuliwapa furaha dada wengi, hata baadhi ya maseneta katika bunge hili waliona raha walipomwona Mheshimiwa Seneta Mazayo ametiwa mbaroni, na hali ambayo inaonyesha kwamba alikuwa ni mtu wa kisawasawa Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba hii ripoti lazima katika vile vipengee ambavyo tutavijadili, na swala la bunge kuangalia gharama za maisha Mheshimiwa Spika ni swala muhimu, na wakati tunaingilia katika mchakato wa kutengeneza bajeti ya mwaka 2024 mwaka 2025 Mheshimiwa Spika, gharama ya maisha lazima iweze kupunguzwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala la pili ambalo ningependa kuligusia ni swala la agenda ama kuongezeka kwa dada zetu ama kina mama katika mamlaka au katika uongozi katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni swala limekuwa donda sugu Mheshimiwa Spika. Bunge lililopita tulijaribu karibu mara 3 Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini swala hili halikuweza kupitishwa, na nakubaliana na kamati kwamba lazima watu wakae chini kama bunge kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba swala hili linatekelezwa ili watoto wetu wa kike, dada zetu waweze kupata fursa ya kuingia katika uongozi. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunavyokwenda itakuwa ni vigumu zaidi kwa kina dada kuingia katika uongozi wa kuchaguliwa, kwa sababu kila siku tunaona kwamba wale ambao wanahusika aidha ni viongozi wa vyama ama wale ambao wanasimamia vikundi hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, wanatumia mbinu ambazo hazifai kikatiba kuweza kuzuia wasichana kupata uongozi. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la mwisho ambalo ningependa kuligusia ni kuhusu ya zile hazina ambazo ziko, kama kwa mfano hazina ya CDF. Tunaweza kusema hazina ya CDF imesaidia pakubwa kupeleka maendeleo mashinani. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumekubali pia hazina ya Senate ya Oversight imeweza kufanya katika muda mchache, imeweza kufanya kazi kubwa. Na vile vile pia Mheshimiwa Spika, tungependa ile ward fund iwepo ili kila ward iweze kupata maendeleo Mheshimiwa Spika kutoka kwa serikali za kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba baadhi ya ward hazipati maendeleo kwa sababu magavana wana bifu ama wana ugomvi ama wana kutoelewana na wabunge bunge la county, kwa hivyo hawapeleki maendeleo katika sehemu zile. Mheshimiwa Spika, tungependa kila wodi iwe na pesa zake za kuhakikisha kwamba maendeleo yanafika katika wodi zile. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile tunakubaliana kwamba ipo haja ya kuangalia kwa haraka masuala ya mipaka ya maeneo bunge na vile vile pia wodi, kwa sababu hili ni swala la kikatiba na ingekuwa limeshughulikiwa kabla ya mwaka 2022, lakini kwa sababu za kiserikali na sababu za kifedha jambo hilo halikuweza kufanyika, lakini ni jambo ambalo lazima lifanyike ili tuone kwamba yale maeneo ambayo yanastahili kupata maeneo zaidi ya ubunge yaweze kupata, ili wananchi waweze kupata uwakilishi wa uhakika katika mabunge ya county na vile vile bunge la kitaifa. Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Chute.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I think election period of 1992-97 was quite chaotic, and there was a lot of issues in this country, and there was a lot of property destruction. And then we formed that time IPPG, which was chaired, that is 1997, chaired by none other than Honorable Jarso Jilo Falana, MP for Saku, my MP, who I am very, very much proud of. I also want to thank the committee that time. The 1997 IPPG report created a lot of democratization to this country. And that is why today we have to add just a few things on what has been done before by that report. Madam Speaker, the IPPG package made the playing field considerably more level. Madam Speaker, let me come back to the issue of NADCO. Let me take this opportunity to thank the members and the co-chairs and the leaders, both leader of opposition or Honorable Raila Odinga and Our Excellency the President, for initiating this process. Madam Speaker, I want to say this is a job well done, and I thank this, and it will remain in history as one of the second maybe IPPGs. This is an IPPG, although it's called NADCO, and they brought a nice report. Madam Speaker, looking at IBC, they are talking about restructuring of commissioners from 7 to 9. I think the reason behind this is very, very important. I think by adding 2 more, I think it was quite advisable, and I really support it. Madam Speaker, on the IEBC issue again, there is issue of boundaries. We are having a lot of issues on boundaries, on many, many counties having issues. I think this should be resolved as soon as possible. This is why I also support this report. On the issue of, Madam Speaker, on the issue of audit of 2022 presidential election, I think, Madam Speaker, since 2007, there is an issue throughout until 2022. This report, if you go and if you want to check these things now, you are just wasting time. I don't know what they are going to gain by starting looking at that report. I don't think that is something that was thought of well. I think there is no, according to me, I don't think that audit report can bring anything that has not been seen before. Madam Speaker, coming to the cost of living, I agree. The cost of living in this country has gone very, very high. And it needs an effort from everybody, both are in the government and on the other side of the government. I think it is not the duty of the president only to look at the cost of living. It is the responsibility of all Kenyans to look at how to reduce the cost of living so that it can be affordable. Madam Speaker, if you look at the fuel VAT, that is almost double. Yes, it has raised the cost of many things, and it is time that we can relook at it and see if we can reduce it by a small margin so that the cost of production can also come down. Madam Speaker, if you go to, for example, Moyale on the Ethiopian side, the cost of a liter of diesel is 75 to 80 shillings. And while on this other side, it is 220 shillings. And you see the difference. And that country is landlocked. Why should we have a fuel which is almost 3 times price in Kenya, the other side, this side of the border, while in Ethiopia, the other side, fuel is cheaper? We need to look at why the cost of fuel is higher in Kenya than Ethiopia. Madam Speaker, the issue of implementation of two-thirds gender rule. Madam Speaker, as you are aware, I'm the chair for National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration. I've come across many groups coming before me, before my committee, and most of them have not gotten the two-thirds gender rule in terms of employment. Madam Speaker, if you look at the two-thirds gender rule and also come back to the people with disability, it's supposed to be at 5%. Most of the people, organizations who came before us are at 1.5 to 2%. Madam Speaker, the problem is, yes, they have not gotten the 5% level. Then what comes now is, if they don't attain the 5% margin, what is going to happen to them? There is no law that says these people should be penalized. I think this issue of saying, oh, we want 5% and then there is no penalty is a problem because nobody cares. Madam Speaker, the issue of fidelity to political parties, I think, and I support this bill, this, what do you call it? This report. The issue of people like Jubilee Party, after the elections, they are running back to the ruling party. For what reason? You remain in your party, like UDM. Why are you coming back to UDM? We've been fighting in Marsabit with UDM. Then here, they are coming back and pretending that they belong to UDA. It's wrong, Madam Speaker. And then the issue of funds. I support the Senate Oversight Fund, and I wanted, if possible, what we are getting now is too small for us to, so we need more money. A place like Marsabit, this is the largest county in this republic. I'm going to travel to Loyangalani tomorrow and Ilret. I have to go by helicopter. And somebody in Kiambu just drives to Kiambu in a short period of time, maybe about 10-15 minutes. So we needed that funds. Office of the Prime Minister, Prime Cabinet, this is just a waste of resources and money. There's no point of having them there. Replacement of IBC commissioners, that's good, because we want new IBC commissioners, not the one that was nominated by the president, so that everybody will be happy. And finally, Madam Speaker, the problem we have is not cost of living. The biggest problem we have is corruption. Today, I've seen today, the government wants to propose a budget of 4 trillion. If we reduce the corruption by only 15%, we are going to save 600 billion. But if we reduce it to zero, we'll save 1.2 billion. Look at the counties. Who manages counties? Corruption is at almost 50%. And this is public. Everybody knows. Kwani, this money from going to the counties are not Kenyan money. It's public's fund, public's money. Madam Speaker, finally, I want to say, the restoration of privileges enjoyed by the coalition leaders. Madam Speaker, this, I don't know why security was removed from our friends on the other side. What is the reason? Why are you removing security? And what is going to happen? Even if next time we are going to be in the position. So we are not, that means we are not going to get security also. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kibwana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, first I would like, of course, to commend the job well done by the NADCO team. Yesterday, Senator Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot was very eloquent, quite sober in his brief. I commend them for the job well done with Senator Umugeni. I know it wasn't an easy job, and they were dedicated to this cause. Madam Speaker, when I saw the technical team with Professor Adams and Zain, I knew it was going to be a good report. And yes, I believe it was a good report. Much has been said, Madam Speaker, and I don't need, in fact, I want to also commend you, Madam Speaker, when you spoke. So I really don't want to neutralize, actually to water down what you said, because it was quite heavy, and you contributed quite well, Madam Speaker, and you spoke for all of us. I only have one or two issues, Madam Speaker, on electoral justice. I feel strongly that having an effective electoral dispute mechanism, it does protect actually fundamental political rights. So it's long overdue for us to have the electoral justice that is in place, and the integrity of elections and the rule of law. Madam Speaker, the other issue is the restructuring and reconstitution of the IBC. Justice delayed is justice denied, Madam Speaker, and it has taken a while. You can imagine a body does not have commissioners, or a body does not have drivers, so nothing can be done. So far, we have had issues of deaths of MCAs and the rest, but then they cannot be replaced since there's no electoral, I mean, there are no commissioners, so electoral body is non-functional. Madam Speaker, the presence of an official opposition party in Parliament, it does strengthen the legislative oversight. And I commend them for having recognized the opposition party and to ensure that at least there will be accountability and transparency in the governance. The last and not least, Madam Speaker, is the bottleneck on the 2/3 gender rule. Azimio as a party supported the 2/3 majority 101%. Madam Speaker, the issue here, I think, was the task force that was formed by Ministry of Gender, which was enforced. So we should direct our guns to the task force, and we need to ask the minister, actually, to submit the report as soon as possible. This report should have come together with the NADCO report. So I feel strongly, I feel very sad that the Ministry of Gender has let us down.
What's your point of order?
Understanding under 105, Madam Speaker, is it in order for Senator Hamida to mislead the House that the task force did not give a report? Madam Speaker, if you check on this NADCO report that has been signed by both parties, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, it is indicated that all stakeholders actually submitted their reports, including the multi-sectoral committee that was there. The issue that we have, Madam Speaker, is actually the wording that is in this report, which specifically says that all the submissions have been heard and considered, but the NADCO committee has chosen to put the issue of the 2/3 gender rule aside and delegated it to the multi-sectoral committee.
Senator Gloria, what are you saying? Has the the ministry multi-sectoral committee submitted its report?
Madam Speaker, the reports have been submitted, and even if you read the NADCO report, they have even given two options.
The paragraph. Let's just go to
yes,
this.
if you go to the recommendations of the two-third gender, Madam Speaker.
Not the recommendation. The report is submitted at which paragraph, please?
That is in the NADCO report. That's what I want us to refer to.
Okay.
Yes.
Which paragraph?
Give me a moment, but there are two options, option A and option B. And Madam Speaker, I don't have it with me, but it is in the NADCO report that two options have been submitted.
Or withdraw, please.
Yeah, kindly, but I'll cite it. I'll cite it, Madam Speaker. It's online. I have to get it online.
When you stand, you need to be clear. Please cite the report.
Senator Gloria, please.
Please, Senator Hamida. Senator Hamida, please cite it. The report is online. Can you get it? You must be speaking from a point of fact. Proceed, Senator Hamida.
Madam Speaker, I'll be glad for Senator Gloria actually to substantiate and give us that report. I'd be happy about it, and I will withdraw if that's the truth. But what I know for sure, and we have Senator Aaron Cheriot, Majority Leader, I have asked him, I have questioned him, and he said for sure the task force has not submitted their report. Yeah, so I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying it. I'm not shouting for the sake of shouting. Madam Gloria, Senator Gloria.
Senator Hamida, please proceed with your.
Anyway.
Don't exchange with anybody, just proceed to make your.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say that let us not kill Baba's spirit, because he has always supported the two-thirds. I commend actually him as my party leader, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, for supporting the two-thirds and for supporting the NADCO report and the team. Madam Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
Senator Khalwale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this national report. And Madam Speaker, I'm a scientist, and like all scientific minds, we believe in gradual progression. The fact that we have missed on some areas but gained on others is in keeping with the spirit of progression, and therefore I believe to an extent, if we adopt this report, we will move the frontier of democracy. Madam Speaker, when the NADCO process commenced, expectations of Kenyans were very high. Expectations of women were very high. And Madam Speaker, it is sobering to note that this report is going to be defined by only 4 things. It's going to be defined and be remembered for creating the office of the leader of the opposition, the office of the prime minister, fixing the problem of IEBC, and lastly but not least, it will be remembered for its failure. It failed. It failed because Kenyans paid by limb, by sweat, by blood, and by life, so that their promise that due to this particular dialogue, the cost of living would come down, they hoped that this would fix it. It has not. The issue of having approached Kenyans in rallies and mobilized them and urged them to believe that the cost of living would be fixed through dialogue was a big hoax. It is therefore sad that nowhere in this report have we fixed the cost of living. The second failure, Madam Speaker, is the 2/3 gender rule. It's a huge failure. I never knew that people were lying about 2/3 gender. I don't know what people fear about women. Madam Speaker, the cost of running the office of the leader of the opposition, the cost of running the entire retinue around the office of the Prime Minister is far more than the cost of fixing the 2/3 gender rule in this House, where we need only 2 women more, and in the National Assembly. It was deceit that we have not fixed the problem of 2/3 gender. The fact that it was downgraded to be taken to a task was a confirmation that nobody wanted it. Outside this negotiated process, which is political, you can never fix the 2/3 gender rule. It's a shame, and I want to urge ourselves to reflect. I have heard you, Chair, when you're contributing, Speaker, when you're contributing, you said they be given 1 week. They don't need a week. We just give them 1 hour to go and pray. After praying, they fix an addendum that the 2/3 gender rule has been agreed upon. End of story. If you don't like 2/3 gender rule, why are you using the current constitution, which provides for the same? This is my problem, and we will move our country, whether some people like it or not. I remember when I was a little boy at the University of Nairobi, we used to go to the Great Court, and we would stand on a table, and we would talk to nobody, talking just to the air, that we would change this country and bring in multi-party democracy. We did. I therefore want to speak here and say, whether some people in this country like it or not, 2/3 gender rule, one day will be effected in this country. It's a shame that we wasted hundreds of millions on a report that is disappointing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator
Have I offended
Ojenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Allow me to...
Senator Tobiko.
Let me take this opportunity, Madam Speaker.
What's the point of order?
Honorable member speaking, but it's about the AC levels in this house. I've had to walk out twice because it's just a little too cold.
Okay.
To make it possible please, for all of us to be in the house, can it be reduced?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ojenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the NADCO report. And Madam Speaker, let me start by procedurally thanking the team that sat together to deliberate over the many issues that bedevil this country and that finally led to the NADCO report. But Madam Speaker, I have a number of issues that I will raise in this report because, Madam Speaker, I do not want this report to meet the same fate as the BBI report. I say so, Madam Speaker, because there are several constitutional hurdles which, if not dealt with early enough, even before the bills are done, then this report may meet the same fate as the BBI report. Madam Speaker, the question of the cost of living that was at the core of this report was not agreed upon. And I think it is of note that when there were the several demonstrations organized countrywide by one faction of the opposition then, The main clamor then was for the reduction of the cost of living, and that is therefore one sticky issue. But let me also say this, Madam Speaker, that the cost of living, I believe, is work in progress, and I'm sure both sides of government, the opposition and government, will work towards realizing an affordable cost of living for the residents of this country.
Senator, a point of information, is it?
Well, I think I'm well informed, but I don't know if my friend wants to inform me.
I'm sure you'll not refuse if I am to inform you. So, Madam Speaker, I've listened to two contributions. One from our whip, Senator Kalwale.
Senator Mogeni, you are informing
Yes.
Senator Ojenda,
And
please.
now from Senator Ojenda.
It's not an opportunity for you to respond to
Yes,
them. It is to inform.
which under Standing Order 105, we should not make statements that may be misleading to the public. Madam Speaker, you have heard it being said repeatedly by my good friend, Senior Counsel, that this report does not address the issue of cost of living. Yet, Madam Speaker, if you go to page 144, in fact, from page 133, from page 133 all the way to 144, the report has comprehensively addressed issues dealing with the cost of living. And we have even given a basis on what has led to the high cost of living. We have made a proposal, if you see in the report at page 144, that the CS Treasury should enhance the cash transfer to older persons, people with disabilities. We have made proposal that from February of this year, the Treasury should sit to review the tax policy with a view of reducing the tax burden on Kenyan, which we diagnosed as the main cause of the high rise on cost of living. We have even made proposals on how farmers should be supported. We have even made proposal, Madam Speaker, that there should be a food program to schools so that we address the issue of cost of living on Kenyans. So there is the Senator for Kisumu, my good friend, in order to mislead the public that this committee has not addressed the issue of cost of living, whereas, Madam Speaker, as I've pointed out, that issue has been addressed comprehensively by this committee. And people in Nyamira are waiting for the money for the old people to be enhanced to 10,000 shillings, Madam Speaker.
Senator Ojenda, please take note of those comments.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I thank the Senator for Nyamira for informing me. But my contribution, Madam Speaker, was that issue, the measures that are required to reduce fuel tax and other taxes were not agreed upon. And when Senator Sifuna contributed on this report, Senator Sifuna pointed that the cost of living and other issues of unga and carrying sufurias was not about those who were demonstrating. It was not about the leaders because they can afford unga. So the person who expected a reduction was the common person, and not the senators, including Senator Mogeni here, who were in the streets demonstrating and running around with sufrias on their heads, and Senator Mwok here, Eddie, who was also out there running around. But, Madam Speaker, I will leave that point. That I hope that next time, Madam Speaker, when leaders go out there demonstrating, let them have solutions for the people they represent. Let them not mislead people that in a jiffy, life will change. We must work hard to improve the status of the people we represent, Madam Speaker, and that is why it is important at times to honestly discuss and engage. Both sides of the House, Madam Speaker, have that obligation. Madam Speaker, when the Mandamano took place, I said I would not take part in the Mandamano because I felt, Madam Speaker, that the solution to the problems that bedevil this country lie in a discussion, not in the streets. Madam Speaker, let me go to the second point, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the NADCO report, in pointing to the need to audit the 2022 electoral results, Madam Speaker, takes us back to the old history and the question, Madam Speaker, that this country would want to forget. This country would want to move forward. In 2010, we adopted a new constitution, and I think it serves the people of this country better to progressively deal with the issues that we have, and not to every electoral cycle, Madam Speaker, go back and fault results of those elections. I do not think that the audit of those election results will serve this country beyond what what has been done. I think Senator Eddie Mook has done an audit of these elections. Madam Speaker, on the reconstitution and restructuring YBC, the recommendations that require that we appoint 9 members to the Senator Mook, just wait. 9 members to the panel.
What's your point of order, Senator Eddie?
9 member, Senator Mook, you're interfering with my...
Senator Ojenda,
my line of
let's
thought.
listen to the point of order, please.
Madam Speaker, you know, I'm still under 101.4. You know, and the idea that the senator for Kisumu is seeking to, you know, somehow impute a very improper motive on me. You know, when you say on national TV, I think that Senator Eddie has done the audit of the elections, and knowing very well that I'm not IBC, I've never worked for IBC, and it's a senior counsel. Madam Speaker, I have to put myself on this matter because he has thrown a number of jobs on me a number of times, but I'm just keeping quiet. You know, he's a senior counsel who by law knows all the institutions that can be able to actually deal with an issue of election. So is he in order to put my name on something like this, or is it actually...
Senator Agenda?
Let
me just, do you have any evidence that
elections?
Okay, well,
and I'm aware that he was an advisor.
I'll give you until tomorrow to provide.
Yes, he showed me. I can look for him to give me the copy that was.
No, Senator Agenda, please. This is serious.
Yes, I will.
Seriously, please submit that evidence.
Yes,
tomorrow.
I will submit. I will get it. No, I will get it.
Proceed.
Madam Speaker, if I may proceed, I will supply the evidence by tomorrow, Madam Speaker. I will get it. Madam Speaker, let me move to the IBC, the reconstitution of IBC, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the IBC, the proposal to reconstitute the panel, the appointing panel from 7 to 9, has ramifications on the IBC Act. The IBC Act, at the first schedule, provides that the President appoints a 7-member panel to advertise and to appoint members of IBC. The proposal by NADCO, the Omogeni team, Madam Speaker, is to the effect that this House and the country has to await form amendments to the IBC Act to be able to continue the process of appointing commissioners. Madam Speaker, that is a long process. I believe that that panel, however, will be representative and will serve the interests of this nation. Madam Speaker, if I may move to the other recommendation by the NADCO report, Madam Speaker, on the question of political parties and on the choice or promotion of political democracy, Madam Speaker, this fact, Madam Speaker, is well covered by Article 38 of the Constitution and the Political Parties Act. I see no need of forming a commission or making bureaucratic measures that will even make it more difficult to deal with members who have a choice as to what policies to support. Madam Speaker, I believe that that proposal, if it finds its way to a bill, has to be carefully considered so that you do not infringe the rights of choice and Article 38 of the Constitution of Kenya. Madam Speaker, on the other questions, I believe the Senate...
Senator Miraj.
Asante Bispika kwa kuweza kunipa fursa hii adhimu ili na mimi niweze kutoa changizo zangu. Kwanza nitangulize heko kwa viongozi wetu akiwa seneta Omugeni na kiongozi wa wengi Bwana Aaron Cheriot, kwa kuweza kuweka tofauti zao kando za vyama vya kisiasa na kuweka taifa letu mbele. Speaker, kauli yangu ya kwanza ni kusema kwamba ripoti hii iko na kinaya kikubwa, na ni sawa na kusema kwamba ashakumsima tusi, lakini ripoti hii inaashiria tufinike kombe ili mwanaharamu apite. Na nimetoa kauli hii kwa sababu mara yoyote tunapopiga kura za kitaifa kuna mshindi na kuna anayeshindwa, na imetokea kwamba yule anayeshindwa kila wakati huregelea kukataa matokeo ya ushindi ule, basi tunajikuta katika hali hii. Na mimi kama kiongozi wa kizazi kipya, kiongozi mchanga katika taifa hili la Kenya, nasema ikiwa ripoti hii ya NADCO haitaweza kuwa suluhu ya matukio haya ambayo yanaenda yakitokea kila muda, basi itakuwa sisi tuko katika hali ya athari kama jamii. Speaker, niweze kuzungumzia masuala ya mapendekezo ya kikatiba ambayo yanakwenda kufanyiwa marekebisho. La kwanza likiwa ni lile la kuangazia masuala ya mipaka na uhakiki wake. Katika kipengele cha 189 cha katiba yetu inazungumzia kuhusu review of boundaries. Speaker, na mimi kwa sababu natoka gatuzi ya Mombasa, mara kwa mara tumesikia kwamba kuna gatuzi zinaweza kuondolewa ili magatuzi nyingine ziongezwe. Lakini mimi kama mwakilishi kutoka eneo la Mombasa, ningependa pia kupendekeza ya kwamba eneo bunge la Kisauni liweze kugawanywa mara 2 na eneo bunge la Likoni pia liende kugawanywa mara 2, kwa sababu kuna sehemu ambazo hazifikiwi na mfuko wa CDF kwa sababu ya wingi wa wananchi wanaopatikana katika maeneo bunge hayo. Pili, Speaker, tunataka niwaregeshe nyuma wa Kenya waweze kujua ni kwa nini kamati kama hii ilibuniwa. Kulikuwa na sintofahamu kubwa ya maandamano, masufuria kuwekwa kwenye kichwa, na ikasemekana kwamba ni kwa ajili ya hali ngumu ya uchumi ndiposa watu waweze kukaa chini na kuja na muafaka wa kupeleka taifa letu mbele. Lakini Speaker, kitu kinachonishangaza ni kwamba dola imewezwa kushukishwa chini na kustawishwa na kuimarishwa bila ya kuwa mazungumzo miongoni mwa mazungumzo ambayo ya agenda zilizokuwa katika ripoti hii ya NADCO. Kisengele nyuma chengine ambacho nimekiona katika ripoti hii, Madam Speaker, ni kwamba lile zungumzo ambalo ni gumzo ambalo liko linatushika sisi kama kina mama katika taifa hili la Kenya liliwezwa kuwekwa pembeni. Gumzo la jinsia ya sulusi zisizozidi 2 kuweza kuwa katika taasisi zote za serikali. Speaker, panapotokea sintofahamu katika taifa la Kenya, pande zote 2 za uongozi husema kwamba waliomo hatarini zaidi ni watoto na kina mama, na nadhani unakubaliana na mimi. Lakini iweje ama viereje leo kamati imekaa na wale wahusika wakuu ambao ndio wengi katika taifa la Kenya, vijana na kina mama, hoja yao kuweza kuweka kando. Na mimi nakashifu na nalaani vikali yule aliyekwenda kupendekeza pendekezo kama hilo la kusema kwamba sisi kama kina mama tunaweza kuwezesha mjadala huo tena, wakati ambao kinara wa upinzani na rais wa taifa la Kenya wamekubaliana kuliweka katika gumzo, kwa sababu tatizo ya theluthi 2 za jinsia ni tatizo la kisiasa. Na unapopata hawa vinara wawili wameridhiana, wamekubaliana kwamba lizungumziwe, alafu mtu tu anakaa na fikra yake bila hata kuhusisha viongozi wa kike katika hili taifa. Hapo wametudhulumu sisi kama kina mama, haswa viongozi ambao tuko hapa kwa sababu ya jinsia yetu, ya kutetea masuala ya jinsia ya mtoto wa kike katika taifa hili. Bi Speaker, naomba huyo mtu ajitokeze pamoja na wale waliokwenda katika kamati hiyo, na wawaombe msamaha wanawake na viongozi katika taifa la Kenya, kwa sababu wameturegesha tena kuanzia 1000 kwa ujiti. Bi Speaker, nipongeze kamati hii kwa kuweza kusajili rasmi ofisi ya mpinzani katika taifa la Kenya, kwa sababu hiyo itaashiria kuwezeshwa na kuthibitishwa na kuimarishwa kwa upinzani, ili demokrasia iweze kunawiri na kutaradadi katika taifa letu la Kenya. Hivyo basi, kuwa macho ya wananchi pale ambapo serikali sio tu ya Kenya Kwanza ama ya Rais William Samoei Ruto, kwa sababu yuko, hata serikali zitakazokuja zitakuwa.
Would you like to be informed?
Yes.
Let's proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad that Senator Miraj has actually raised the issue that has been recurring on this 2/3 gender rule. I would like to inform her that the problem that we are having right now is not that proposals were not given. Madam Speaker, on page 165, 166, and 167 of this report, the NADCO report, you will see the various groups of the committees that sat and submitted proposals on how to actualize the 2/3 gender. In that report, you will see in page 166B.
Just hold on, Senator Gloria. Did Senator Miraj say that proposals were not given?
Senator Miraj said that she would like for those who are involved to come forward and apologize because their input or the lack of input of their work is what has caused us to get here, in many words in Swahili. And that is what I'd like to inform her, that the input was actually put by several sector working groups. And on page 166 of this report, B, you will see that it is in the NADCO report stating, a multi-sectoral working group was established on 15th August 2023 via the Gazette notice by the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action to develop and recommend a framework of implementation of 2/3 gender principle. If you go to page 167 of the same NADCO report, it then says that committee recommendations, after the input of all these various committees, including KEWOPA, including all the public participation, then the committee, the NADCO committee then says, the committee recommendations are that the committee, and I'm reading now 518 on page 167, the committee recommends that A, the multi-sectoral working group on the realizations of the 2/3 gender principle under the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action to finalize its work and recommend a framework of implementation. And if you go to B, it further states that there are 2 options that the committee, the multi-sectoral committee, has put forward. So it is the NADCO committee that is recommending that the multi-sectoral committee goes to sit further and deliberate.
So what is your point?
So that is my point of information that I was informing Senator Miraj, that all the different committees and segments of people who brought their proposals actually did their input. And it is not their fault.
That is
true. It is not their fault. Who we are faulting here is the recommendations, the way it has been, the wording has been put, is that NADCO has then decided that these recommendations are not enough and a multi-sectoral committee should then further sit. And that is how we are being excluded from this implementation of the NADCO report.
Senator Miraj?
Abi Speaker, nikiendelea ni kwamba pia ningependa wawakilishi wetu wa wadi waweze kupewa mfuko ambao utawawezesha kufanya oversight role zao kama ambavyo ripoti ya NADCO imeweza kutupa sisi kama maseneta. Na pia ningependelea, kwa sababu majority leader wetu yuko hapa, kiongozi wa wengi, ya kwamba hata sisi kama wawakilishi wa jinsia katika bunge hili la seneti tuweze kuangaliwa katika kuwezeshwa kwenda kufanya oversight ya masuala ya kijinsia kule nje, kwa sababu hatuko tu hapa kusindikiza maseneta waliochaguliwa kule nje. Tuko hapa kwa sababu sisi pia tumetwikwa majukumu na katiba ya Kenya ili kuja hapa kuwakilisha na kutunga sheria na hata pia kusimamia rasilimali za Wakenya katika njia zote, katika fedha zote ambazo zimewekwa katika katiba ya Kenya. Asante, Bi Speaker.
Senator Margaret Kamara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to join my colleagues. First, in congratulating the committee, the NADCO committee, for a very nice negotiations. I congratulate them because we are reminded of the IPBG days. The return of something similar to IPBG reminds us one thing, Madam Speaker, that Kenyans know how to negotiate and that Kenyans love peace. I want to congratulate the President and the former Prime Minister for choosing the route of peace. This is very important for us as a country because we are a country, Madam Speaker, where during elections we have refused to be completely divided. And that is why the margin between two candidates has never increased. Not even that. You find that the formations in, since the new constitution came has kept shifting. One formation in 2013, another different formation in 2017. Actually, it started all the way in 2007. So it means Kenyans are very close to one another, and it's very, very difficult to divide them into a majority and a minority. So for that, it is important for us to notice that the way of peace, the way of negotiation is a way that we should always do, and we laud the President and the former Prime Minister for choosing that route. Madam Speaker, I want to join colleagues who have talked about the gender issue, because apart from recognizing gender as one of the outstanding constitutional matters, the report did not give us what we expected, which was a legislative proposal. Because in a number of the other issues, legislative proposals were given to move the agenda further. But in the area of gender, nothing moved. And this is very, very sad, Madam Speaker, because entrenching gender should have been one of the key outputs of this report. As Senator Alwale said earlier, you ask yourself what the fear of women is in this country when it comes to leadership. It is like everybody is running away from them, everybody fears them. And you ask yourself, why exactly is this? And we need to start interrogating. Maybe we need some researchers to do this, so that we actually get to understand where the fear is coming from. Because the real reason why the gender issue was raised in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was the fact that there are areas that male gender will interrogate better than female, and there are areas where female will do better than male when it comes to development. This is recognized worldwide. But it is so sad that in the region, Kenya has continued to lag behind. We are lagging behind Rwanda, we are lagging behind Uganda, we are lagging behind Tanzania. It is a very, very sad situation, and we really need to ask ourselves how we can deal with this issue. I would have accepted that an amendment be brought to this report so that gender is actually rectified, because we need to rectify, and in particular, we don't need to do much more research. In fact, this report that the multi-sectoral discussed and whatever is not the issue. The thing is that we have all the facts. We had them during the promulgation of the new constitution, and that it was there. It is just a matter of how to operationalize the clauses on gender and make sure that this is done. It's no wonder that you find that although we are saying all elective and nominative and as well as appointed positions should have gender balance, that even the appointed ones have not been addressed. It's because of the same attitude towards gender which needs to be dealt with. We therefore need to revisit that. The other issue, Madam Speaker, that I would like to mention is to congratulate the committee for coming up with the establishment of these two offices. Some people think it's negative to have the offices, but I think it's very positive to have the office of the Leader of Official Opposition and to have the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. In fact, during the process, the Bomas process, and I was a member when the Constitution was being drafted, Madam Speaker, it was very clear that Kenyans wanted 5 positions in the top leadership of this country. They wanted a president and a deputy president, and then they wanted a prime minister and 2 deputy prime ministers. What were Kenyans looking for at that time? They are looking for inclusivity, because the negativity that we have had, tribalism that we have had, has had to do with people not being included. And inclusivity is a very important thing. So even the inclusion of a leader of opposition is very important, because that's not an enemy to the country. Being a leader of opposition means you are the one who is championing the checks and balances of government. That's simply that. And so we should not really be running away from those. So for me, those 2 positions are positions that are good. Madam Speaker, finally, the entrenching of the funds in the Constitution. These 3 recommendations are good. The entrenching of the Senate Oversight Fund in particular is one that is attractive. But then you ask yourself in this House, how is it that we are talking of 47 senators and not 67 senators? We must start to interrogate and ask ourselves. When we were discussing this fund earlier, I chose not to talk about it because I wanted it to pass and I wanted the money to come in, so that it's not an excuse of they fought over the money and they left it. Now that we have the money, we need to ask ourselves, really, are you going to have the nominated members not involved in oversight? That will be a lie to Kenyans. The reason we have nominations is so that we have areas that were not covered. Gender is one of them. The disabled are the other area. The youth is also there. So we cannot ignore that constituency when it comes to oversight, because there are also issues that need to be looked at. And oversight is not just interrogating the expenditure of the governor. Oversight means looking at also the budgeting by the governor, looking at these CIDPs to see whether it is actually covering every sector. And there are sectors that have not been looked at, which need to be looked at. So it would have been very, very useful that as we entrench the Senate Oversight Fund, we would have actually resolved the issue of having everybody in this Senate, the 67 members included. And we need to also have a structure. We even need to have that committee, a committee that should actually spearhead the spending and to focus on the reports of the reports that come out of the activities of oversight, because unless that is done, it will just be money coming in and money going out. We cannot afford to lose the time when it comes to oversight. We must oversight the funds that go to the counties properly, starting from the budgeting, starting from the establishment of the CIDBs, all the way to make sure that everybody is included and that everybody is enjoying the funding that goes to the devolved units. Madam Speaker, I know a number of members would like to contribute, so I want to stop there and leave my last 1 minute. Madam Speaker, I support this report and I really congratulate the committee. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Murgor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also air my views, added to those of my colleagues. I would like, first of all, to congratulate the principals, and that is the President and Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, for the willingness that this dialogue gets carried on, because that actually brought the country together and quieted the noise that was there and pointed the country to the right direction. I would like to make a few comments on formation of IBC and thank the appointment of the committee that will look into the members. And I would like to say here that parties are interested in pulling about IBC to one way or the other. You find that political parties would like to be favored in one way or the other, and therefore the neutrality and standing in a position that will not be favoring either party will really be the way to go in the country, because if it favors a party, a political party, that will be twisted to the wrong direction. And also some politicians would like to pull to their side, and therefore neutrality of the IBC is paramount in taking the country into the next exercise that is ahead of us. And then on economical stability and improvement, the government has taken really the right direction by looking into production of food, because if there is stability of food, anything else can come later. Even if we talk of school fees and all that, as long as people are eating and as long as people have food to eat, any other agency will actually be looked into tomorrow or the other day, as long as people have food. And therefore, enhancing production of food by giving affordable fertilizer to the farmers is a very ideal thing that our government has really enhanced production of food, because the noises that we made and all that could not produce food. And therefore, for the government to have gone into the farmer and into whoever is producing food is an ideal approach that has made food available, and it is beginning now to come down on prices. But I would like to point here that the person that is really feeling and having difficulty is a consumer, because when you talk to farmers, they are very happy at prices of their food commodities. I was talking to a farmer of sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, and they said for the first time a bag of the commodity has now hit 2,000 shillings a bag, and they are very happy. And so, but the person that consumes without producing it is feeling the pinch of that price, and therefore there is, give and take between the consumer and the farmer. So, and the president announced as we were meeting in Naivasha that a liter of milk is going to cost 50 shillings now, And so producer of milk will be very happy, while the person consuming will feel the pinch of that price. And then, as my colleagues have said about putting the CDF and all the other funds in the Constitution, it is very rightly so. And I would like to say here that for the MCAs to have funds of their own for development is a very, very good idea, because right now most of MCAs are just like flower girls to the governors, because of the fact that governors have all the money and MCAs have none, and therefore they make them either be loyal to them personally or have nothing. And therefore, to have independence on that item will be very helpful to the MCAs. So I support. Thank you.
Senator Eddie.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that I will start by submitting to the fact that it is indeed important that as a nation we thank the President Ruto, as well as the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, for taking the chance of dialogue. Madam Speaker, the price of peace is a very expensive price. If you have never experienced the art of war in your country, then sometimes it can be very elusive to be able to think about what can your country become if such things as what we saw happening in this country, where there were two factions that could not agree on who is right or who is wrong, such countries, we have seen them go down. Madam Speaker, politics sometimes is like religion. It's very difficult to actually convince one another on who is right or who is wrong, to the extent that sometimes people prefer sitting in their own quarters and sitting in their own corner and saying that I'm right or wrong. And Madam Speaker, for the confidence that these two gentlemen did for our country, they deserve respect. The President, as the head of state in this country, honestly does deserve respect for actually accepting that a country could sit together and talk. Because, Madam Speaker, it reached a point where in this country, we were getting to a situation whereby even if you said you didn't care about ODM and you could shoot a few people here and there with the police, what happens if you could have reached a place whereby it is purely ODM in a region like Migori County, where I come from, where the border is so significant in the economic performance of this country, to the extent that is number 3 place where goods and services are passing through. And therefore, as a country, we have prime cities and prime borders that do affect the entire region in terms of business. So the country was getting at a place whereby we are going to get a standstill, that even a possibility for civil strife was not a far-fetched an idea. So therefore, I want to start by telling the country that the juice of NADCO is the fact that it redeemed peace. And therefore, we want to thank the President, and with a lot of respect, and we want to thank Right Honorable Raila Odinga for giving the country a chance to have a dialogue that resuscitated peace, as well as ensure that national cohesion can still be a virtue that we live for as a nation. That said, Madam Speaker, I also want to say that I want to thank the team for sitting for many hours. Sometimes as colleagues, when we see people doing these special committees, we don't know how much work it actually does entail. Madam Speaker, we were in Shakahola committee, and I saw how much time we used to spend, sometimes burning the midnight oil, trying to discern what is going on in the country and what's going on in Kilifi, I can only imagine how much these gentlemen and ladies did sit and work so hard for our country to be able to come with such a report that I think is very rich and goes to some of the core issues that made us as a country differ. So I want to thank especially the members of the House and the members of the lower house who are there, of course, led by Senator Cheriot, as well as Senior Counsel Okongo Mogeni, for the work that they did. They did the best they could with the much time that they had and with the people they could be able to interact with. Madam Speaker, of course, one of the major issues that was there that caused the problem that we saw in our country was the cost of living. And I think that this report has attempted very well to be able to deal with some of these things. If you look at page 144 of the report, it is proposing that the Social Protection Fund should actually be expanded to include some of the people who are downtrodden by issues of high cost of living, to the extent that people living with disability, and as well as people like old people, in the old person's cash transfer. How do we make this cash transfer effective? How do we expand the support for these kind of people? In fact, as a young person, I wish that they had even the courage of classifying youths coming from schools, comrades who are coming from schools, whether it's TVETs, whether it is universities, whether it is colleges. I see many of them in Migori County. When they come from school, they spend even 1 to 2 years. They cannot be able to find jobs. They cannot be able to find ways of living. I wish that the Social Protection Fund was expanded and put them as a risk group. Because those youths, if you are to give them 10,000 every month for at least a year, that gap year when they're still looking for a job, they will have better outcome of succeeding in their lives when they now eventually get a job. So the idea that Social Protection Fund can be expanded is a good one, but I wish that they could see youth in this country as vulnerable, especially those who are living in tertiary institutions and cannot be able to get support. I also support the idea that older persons, the money should be increased from 2,000 to 10,000. Because these old people that we have, as a country, we haven't figured out how we support old people even when they are sick, or if their sons and daughters and grandchildren have left home. They don't have the support structure that they can be able to depend on. So it's not only about subsistence of giving them some money to eat, but also increasing this money in such a way that they can even use it to procure some simple medical services that they need. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the report for inputting on IBC as well as political parties to bring sanity in our entire politics. The idea of electoral justice as well as oversight on the executive are ideals that we must continue championing and fighting for. And Madam Speaker, you can just imagine right now, if you were to come to this house and then the entire side of the house, all people move to the other side. You won't have a debate. We won't have a conversation. It is something that people must embrace and be able to build. The only missing link or missing point that I saw, Madam Speaker, was on the area of devolution. I think that this report should have recognized very well that if we are going to build this country ultimately, money must go to counties. Money must follow functions. And we must empower counties to have more money so that both power and money can be felt to the people. I know that there's an attempt to give MCAs money, and I support it 100%, that MCAs must be given some resources, but there is no risk of even increasing some more counties, because if you've got more counties, then it means that more money will go to the county. It doesn't take away from the national government, it just gives more to the people. People like people of Kuria, where I come from, these are minorities that their population has grown so big that I think that there's nothing wrong with giving Kuria a county. There's nothing wrong with giving the people of Teso a county. There's nothing wrong with giving people of Suba a county. All you're doing is that once you give them the county, when you expand that allocation, more money will go to the grassroots. It doesn't mean that if Kuria gets a county, it's going to take away from other counties. So the issue of devolution is something that I wanted to see some rigor, some engagement in this report, because ultimately it is the one thing that if we all rally ourselves behind, then this country can be able to develop in a manner that we can never be able to recognize. And this is something that even as we're having this conversation, as we'll be having some more opportunities to look at this report. I know that the recommendation was that it be adopted in its entirety, which I do support 100%, but there are going to be opportunities where we can be able to review. For instance, IBC is being put in place to be able to review boundaries in the country, to be able to review some of the administrative elements that we have in this country. If there is ever an opportunity to be able to review the redistricting that was done in 1990 so that we can be able to review our counties, then, Madam Speaker, as a House, I hope that we will not miss an opportunity to work so hard that some of these counties that can be able to be added can come to be a dream, not only for those people, like Kuria people where I come from in Migori, or like people from Teso, or like the Suba people, but it becomes a reality in the context of the more we devolve the funds to the people, the better for the whole country, because then it means that services and any kind of support that they will need from government before is brought as close as possible to them. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I want to support this report awesomely, and I also want to say congratulations to the people who actually did this report. And again, I want to pass my sincerest respect and thanks to our two leaders in this country, the President Ruto, as well as the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, for giving us a chance to be able to vent and make this NADCO report a reality. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Tobiko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the report by the National Dialogue Committee. And Madam Speaker, let me just take this opportunity, like all my other colleagues, to thank the President and the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, for agreeing to engage, Madam Speaker, and to save Kenya from civil strife, Madam Speaker, because I think this is where we were heading to, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, let me also congratulate Kenyans for being a very peaceful community and a community that, has a resilience, Madam Speaker. A people who are always optimistic and pray and hope for the best, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our prayer continues to be that a lot will come out of, this engagement for the benefit of Kenyans, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one of the things that really across board in the country by the time of the establishment of this committee was the high cost of living. And Madam Speaker, it is our sincere hope that, it will go beyond the report, that, we will aspire as leaders, both in the parliament, in the executive, in the judiciary, we will all aspire to bring the cost of living down, subsequently, and until Kenyans can feel, that they can lead their lives normally and, in a respectable manner, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was in Dubai just the other day. Actually, I came back the day before yesterday. And Madam Speaker, I was speaking to someone there. And they were telling me they don't have oil like most of the other Emirates. But the life in Dubai, the living standards of those people. That even the dollar they have managed to have the dollar at a certain level, I think 3 shillings to the dirham, for the last 40 years, Madam Speaker. And I was asking them, what is your secret? And they told me, we have only 2 things in this country. One, tourism, because we receive around 25 million tourists in a year. The other one is investments. And Madam Speaker, I kept asking myself, Dubai receiving 25 million tourists in a year. We, a country that's blessed with so much, we're blessed with good parks, we are blessed with good beaches, we are blessed with a very wonderful and rich, diverse cultures of the people of Kenya. But we receive a paltry 2.5 million tourists, and you wonder, what is it that does not make it right for us? Is it our infrastructure? Is it the corruption levels in this country? Is it that we have not gotten our systems right, that, visitors don't feel comfortable and don't feel like, they can have their lives well managed, or what is it that makes it not work for us? And we need to ask ourselves this question, because we must continue to bring the cost of living down, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the cost of farm inputs has been high in this country. The taxation has been high, Madam Speaker, and so making it really difficult for those who want to engage in agricultural produce, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at the airport, I was talking to some taxi guys, and I'm hoping that they're listening to me, because they challenged me to come and speak about it on the floor of this house. That, the Uber taxi has taken business from our local taxi people, Madam Speaker. And it's good that this is also addressed, so that Kenyans are not run out of business. Madam Speaker, there are Kenyans who eke their lives out of this transportation business, and as long as the cost of fuel continues to go up, and the taxation on vehicles is up, a lot of Kenyans who are feeding their families from this economic engagement will not be able to handle their lives, Madam Speaker. These are things that we need to address. Leaders in this country must aspire to bring the cost of living down. I think this is what I was saying, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the committee really tried, to address a number of issues. The reconstitution of the select panel for IEBC, I think, is welcomed, Madam Speaker, so that all groups will feel comfortable and feel represented, so that when IEBC goes into business, everybody feels comfortable that they can be, an impartial referee of the electoral process. Madam Speaker, also the establishment of the office of the Leader of Opposition is welcomed, because as we have seen, the very close competition in this country leaves a majority of Kenyans out there who need structures and systems that they can continue voicing voicing their opinions through the office of the Leader of Opposition, Madam Speaker. The establishment of the office of the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, is welcome, as long as all these offices, what we will be trying to do is to bring the cost of living for Kenyans down, not increasing the burden for them, Madam Speaker, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Kenyans out there who went to the streets, because majority of the people who are in the streets were not leaders. Majority of the people who are out were common Kenyans, Madam Speaker. And the establishment of many offices might be looked at, as a way of adding a burden on them, Madam Speaker. So there must be a way for us to convince Kenyans that these offices are going to contribute to, a better living for them, Madam Speaker, more effectiveness in service delivery, Madam Speaker, so that Kenyans then view this process to have paid off for them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I support the establishment of, the entrenchment of NGCDF in the Constitution. I held a constituency for 2 terms, Madam Speaker, and I know what NGCDF funds have been able to do for common mwananchi, the bursaries, the scholarships, this educational infrastructure, Madam Speaker, is something that Kenyans have learned to appreciate using NGCDF funds, Madam Speaker, including the National Government Affirmative Action Fund that our women reps now, do oversee. Madam Speaker, it's good that also the Senate Oversight Fund has been ring-fenced. But Madam Speaker, as other leaders have spoken here, you and me know that the implementation of this oversight fund has been rolled out in exclusion of the nominated members, Madam Speaker. You included, Madam Speaker. And, I keep asking myself whether the oversight role of the Senate was only, according to the Constitution, was meant for the 47 elected members. If not, then the rollout of this fund has started on a wrong footing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, also, when you define what is the Senate, you cannot have the Senate complete minus the 20 nominated for, specially elected for, to represent the disabled, to represent the youth, and to represent the women of this country, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I do agree with the earlier members who have spoken earlier that the MCS should also be considered for an oversight fund. Actually, Madam Speaker, both houses, the National Assembly, the Senate, and also the county assemblies, our major role is oversight, and this is the role we should be emphasizing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is shocking that this committee trivialized the issue of the 2/3 gender role. Yet, this is in the Constitution, and I don't know why we continue to, sweep it under the carpet when the Constitution is very clear that it should be implemented. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the role of IEBC, and I'm asking, Madam Speaker, just because I can see the light has gone red, for 2 minutes, Madam Speaker, I believe I'm one of the last speakers. Madam Speaker, the role of IEBC, and this, I want to connect it to the 2/3 gender role. Because I have seen it and detailed what IEBC will do and will continue doing. But Madam Speaker, for me, and from the experience I have had in the political space, one of the roles that IEBC should undertake is party nominations. Why do I say that? It is during party nominations that a lot of women of this country are lost out of the competitive electoral process, Madam Speaker. I say this, Madam Speaker, because parties are individually owned. They belong to owners, and when they don't want to give you the ticket, they will not give you the ticket. And this is where the women of this country lose out, Madam Speaker. I am saying this, and I will continue saying this, because I know if I had a ticket to the ballot, Kajiado today will be represented by a woman governor. That is how we lost. We lost in the party primaries, and if IEBC does not come to referee the party nominations, the women of this country will never be able to get even 50% of the elective slots. But if IEBC is involved, because I have faith in them, Madam Speaker, I know the women of this country will not be asking for anybody to nominate them to any slot. We will compete for space, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-1, I wish to make a determination that the matter does not affect counties and put the question. Honorable Senators, I put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the National Dialogue Committee laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 14th February 2024. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? No, I think we'll repeat the vote. You were not there. No, you were not there. Can we repeat the vote? Yes. It's a tie because you are only two and one went for. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it.
That's what I was waiting for.
You're not here.
Order number 10.
He's not here. He's not over.
Order number 10. The Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 33 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate interrupted on Thursday, 15th February 2024.
Senator Mutata, do you wish to speak? I can't see. No, for the water bill. We are now on the water bill. Sorry, I didn't realize you wanted to speak, because you were not reflected. Honorable Senators, any member can speak on the water bill. Because we had last time we concluded with Senator Kajwang, and he had actually concluded. So there's no. Oh, there is somebody. Senator Cheruyot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to make my contribution to this, the Water Amendment Bill of 2023, which is a bill or an act of Parliament to provide for PPPs arrangement for
Senator Cheruyot, you're replying to the motion?
No, contributing.
You moved it, huh?
Oh, yeah. No.
You actually moved. It was moved in the last session. Okay, I'll allow you to speak. You want to reply? Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Do you wish to speak? Okay. Senator Mutata.
Madam Speaker, I rise to address major concerns in the proposed amendments to the way water as a commodity is going to be handled, and especially the proposals that have been put there in terms of privatizing the sector, allowing private players to come in and play a significant role. Water is a basic requirement of life, and it must be availed to the population in a manner that is not exploitative. It must be availed in a manner that people don't make profit out of it. I think there's a petition from Runda, the Nairobi County Assembly,
where there's a private company supplying water there, and they're complaining they're paying about 5-6 times what the Nairobi City Council, Nairobi Water is charging. So a private player will come in to make profit on a basic commodity. And that's what my concern is. The water should remain with the municipalities, and the municipalities will just ensure efficiency so that water can be availed in proper quantities. Otherwise, private actors will say, okay, the informal settlement may not be able to afford this water at what you want to charge. So the water will not go there. So I would really want that we look at the issue of privatizing this sector, or allowing private actors to come and play a significant role at the base level. If you want to go and purify the water and sell them in bottles, you can do that. But to sell water in the pipes, and then when you sell this water and when you put a company to sell water in an area in pipes, how would you distinguish water? How would you allow competition in that area? Will an area be bound by the person who laid pipes in that area, that they can only get water from that vendor, not from the other vendor? So, Madam Speaker, I think that it will be most inappropriate and to look against the rights of Article 43, where the state has an obligation to provide water, clean water in quantities that are required. If we put in private players to supply a basic commodity like that, the market is driven by profit. And that drive is going to distort water, and water is going to be owned by the elite. The poor people will have no access to water. What must happen that water must remain a service provided, piped water I mean. Piped water must be provided by the municipalities or the counties. And if private actors want to come in, they can come in and brand water and have whatever, but the pipelines must remain open to everybody. Otherwise, we are going to end up in a situation whereby provision of water will be a problem. And there are case studies around the world whereby this kind of action that has been taken, that's being proposed, has been taken, and we have ended up in situations whereby people have been overcharged. Look at the price of bottled water. At one point, it was more expensive to buy water than to buy petrol in this country. So that should be an indicator that the profit motive and the fact that water is such a basic requirement of life, that without water you basically have no life, we should not allow private actors there. Water is like air. It must be availed at a minimal cost. Just the way we avail roads at a minimum cost to everybody, irrespective of class, but to ensure that those who don't have as much as others still have access to water. And so the proposal to allow private actors to play a prominent role at the foundational level of water provision is something we should be reluctant to embrace, and I would urge that that particular part of the act be amended. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I rest my case.
I now invite the mover to reply.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank colleagues who have taken time to debate this water amendment bill that is before this House. I have listened to colleagues speak on this, many in support, some with concerns. Unfortunately, many of those concerns, Mr. Speaker, like the ones by my colleague, Senator Okiya Omtata, are either from a point of not completely understanding the proposal and the private
public partnership architecture in the Republic, or, Mr. Speaker, there might be other reasons beyond which I can understand. Because, why do I say so? In the PPP law that we passed in 2021, and I'd wish to invite my good friend Senator Okiya Omtata to read it and appreciate it. At the contracting phase of any service or goods that a private player has been allowed to provide to the public under a PPP agreement, the government still retains the control of pricing, and you enter into a contract way in advance. So it's not that you're giving to a private player, say, to run a public road and saying you'll charge the amount of money that you want. If that was the case, Madam Speaker, with the kind of huge demand that we have, for example, on the expressway, they'd be charging 1,000 shillings so that they discourage other people from using it. The contractual agreement that Government of Kenya enters with any private player under the PPP agreement details how you arrive at the price, taking care of the concerns of many Kenyans, such as what Senator Omtata has carefully brought out, that this is a commodity that many Kenyans cannot even, first of all, find it, forget about purchase. And it is on that premise, my good friend Senator Omtata, that the thinking has been that if we wait for a time that we believe government, using our own taxes, living in a country with such a crowded fiscal space, will provide water for all citizens, then there are fellow compatriots who will have to wait until Jesus comes back before they drink piped and have access to clean water, as expected under Article 43 of our Constitution. And therefore, it is under that premise and the realization that we do not have sufficient resources to pipe water to every home in this republic, that there is now a thinking that we can amend the Water Act of 2016 and make it possible through certain private players and entities that they enter into a chaperoned and well-guided contractual framework with the water works agencies and the various state corporations, Madam Speaker, to be able to provide water at a price that is affordable, in the right quantity. This country where anybody walks around with water bowsers without even any certification to show where they have gotten that water from. There are people who are siphoning water out of public water agencies and coming in to sell within informal settlements and various parts of the city. Madam Speaker, we want to make that a thing of the past. How do you make it? You bring in the efficiencies of private sector and ensure that so long as you agree with them they are rolling out of the particular project, and tell them this is the determined price for this particular area, Madam Speaker, so that they can go out and agree. I know there have been very serious concerns, and on that I agree, on how some of the provisions on this bill roll back the gains of devolution. That much I concede, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy I have seen the report of our Lands and Natural Resources Committee that has proposed amendments that will ensure that our county governments play a key and instrumental role in this PPP arrangement, so that it's not just by the determination of national government alone. The county governments also have a place in these agreements, because constitutionally they are mandated to reticulate water and ensure that it gets to all the citizens of the republic. Therefore, I am happy and pleased with the amendments that have been provided by the Water and Natural Resources Committee, Madam Speaker, because they have appreciated the concerns that many senators had. And that is the essence of debate, dear colleagues. When a bill of parliament, when a bill is proposed before the House of Parliament, it is our duty. I don't appreciate, Madam Speaker, this business, and I see...
Order, Senator Eddy and Senator Chesang, please listen.
You know, the two gentlemen earlier on had informed us the kind of things they do in public washrooms, Madam Speaker. So when they see them excited together, I am tempted to think other things. Anyway, Madam Speaker, the point I was making is that when a bill is proposed before the House of Parliament, I see a very lazy argument being peddled on the floor of the Senate many times when colleagues say, oh, I am opposed to this bill because it rolls back the gains of devolution. And I wonder, so what is your job? Constitutionally, under Article 95 of the Constitution, no other body has the power to make statute which has the force of law other than Parliament where we sit. Therefore, I wish to encourage our colleagues that anytime you see any bill and you feel that a particular clause is offensive, because many times, Madam Speaker, hardly do you find that somebody is opposed to a bill in its entirety. It's particular clause, a particular line within the bill that they feel, no, this should have been framed differently. And therefore, I wish to urge our colleagues that when you disagree with certain provisions, the best thing to do, immediately after you have made your arguments on the floor, Madam Speaker, is to file an amendment. And perhaps even when you read it way in advance during the stakeholder engagement with our committees, go and convince and persuade the committees so that it comes even together with the amendments that come with our various committees, Madam Speaker, because that is our duty. That's what we are paid for. We are paid to legislate. There is no other legislature in this republic other than this House. The way we shall protect devolution, Madam Speaker, is not by rejecting bills and just saying, oh, I don't agree with this one because of this or the other. It is our duty, and wish to encourage colleagues, senators, Madam Speaker, that every time there are such bills that are speak to important, first of all, appreciate the concept. And we have said the concept is very noble, Madam Speaker, that we want to make it possible for every citizen of this country to access water. The challenge, what is the challenge? The challenge is that realistically speaking, in the fiscal space that Kenya is, it's not possible for government to provide the resources needed, Madam Speaker, to roll out water to every Kenyan. Therefore, what is the proposition in the bill? The proposition in the bill is to partner with the private sector and agree with them, because this law is not a standalone law. It is in red alongside the PPP, public-private partnership law that we have already passed in this law. And on any matter that involves the public in a big way, such as water, Madam Speaker, government still retains the final decision on issues of cost, because it's of a great concern to the people. Therefore, Madam Speaker, as I reply, I hope all the colleagues that spoke and said, oh, I disagree with this bill because of the following provisions, A, B, C, D, that I will be seeing them filing amendments so that they align it with devolution the way they are proposing. I am glad, though, that speaking to the chair of this Lands and Environment Committee, and Madam Speaker, in accordance to Standing Order number 66.3, I beg to request that we defer the putting of the question on this bill, Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2023, to be deferred until a later date.
It is so deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 37 of 2023, second reading. Resumption of debate interrupted on Wednesday, 14th February 2024 at the afternoon sitting.
What's your point of order, Eddie?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I've just seen I'm rising under Standing Order number 41. Madam Speaker, I want to appreciate the weight of the order that has just been read. You know, Parliamentary Powers and Privileges is a very important bill that I think that when we're discussing it, I would want to see some rigor and some commitment by fellow senators to it. I'm just wondering, Madam Speaker, whether you've got the quorum necessary to be able to prosecute on that particular bill, Madam Speaker. You know, understanding order number 41. Perhaps you could advise, Madam Speaker.
Clerks, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, can we ring the bell for 10 minutes? For 2 minutes? For 2 minutes? Can we ring the bell for 10 minutes? Honorable Senators, having failed to attain quorum at the expiry of 10 minutes, the Senate stands adjourned pursuant to Standing Order 41-2A until tomorrow, Thursday, 22nd February 2024 at 2:30 p.m.